The Atlanta Falcons are considering Michael Penix at number 8. And I know they signed Kirk Cousins, gave him $100 million guaranteed. It is all about succession at the most important position. A lot of people think they're going to take a defensive player, maybe edge. Michael Penix is very firmly in the mix for the Atlanta Falcons.
How about them apples?
I was wondering when the chaos was going to start. Apparently now.
Here we go.
With the 8th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Atlanta Falcons select Michael Penix Jr.
Well, there it is.
Wow. Washington.
That is the first surprise of the NFL draft, to say the least.
I got to tell you, Alex, I told you all week. I said I'm excited for this year's draft. I don't know what's going to happen, but I feel like it's going to be crazy. And typically when that happens, we get to the actual draft, and there's no way for it to live up to expectations. Last night, it did. That audio courtesy of NFL Network. Now, the top 6 or so really went according to plan. Caleb Williams goes to the Bears just as expected. Jaden Daniels, it was locked in. They went to Topgolf, and they decided this is our guy. Look at the cut of his jib.
Man, it's hard to pick him out from the rest of the group, but that's our guy.
Jonathan Kraft, the owner's son, said, you know what? We need a quarterback. I'm in charge of this thing now. So the Patriots take Drake May.
Smart.
Marvin Harrison Jr., it was always MHJ. Joe Walt, we knew one of the 2 tackles was going to the Chargers. I don't know if you saw Alex. Jim Harbaugh said after the NFL draft last night, I saw everybody putting a weapon to us. Well, we view tackles as offensive weapons.
Yeah. That dude is 6'9", like 380 pounds. Dude, yeah, I'd call him a weapon.
He stood up. That is a massive.
Did you see his dad trying to stand up? His poor dad's knees. He had to be pulled up by his son.
Malik Neighbors. Everybody knew the Giants needed to get some kind of a weapon.
Ooh, we're going to take a quarterback.
Maybe a quarterback could go there.
Guy.
They apparently really wanted Drake May, though, not J.J. McCarthy, so they go receiver. That was the chalk pick there.
They still believe in Daniel Jones.
We knew that the Titans were going to go with the tackle. They end up getting J.C. Latham from Alabama, and boy, howdy. I was watching a little bit of the Belichick YouTube feed at that point. Belichick loves J.C. Latham. Big J.C. Latham energy.
Well, guess what, Bill? You're not in the NFL anymore.
Whoa.
And then we got to the 8th pick. And I didn't know what the Falcons were going to do. It felt something on defense is all that people were saying, right? They could take any of the defensive players because all of them were available. Alex, when they get on the clock, and I was watching the NFL Network feed at this point, so I saw that audio that you just heard coming back with Ian Rappaport saying, hey, they could take Michael Penix Jr. here. Watch out, guys. I was like, no, why would they do that? Guy. They just paid $90 million guaranteed to Kirk Cousins. That wouldn't make any sense. There's no chance that they're going to take a quarterback here. And then they did it. They said, watch what I'm going to do here. And they took him. Alex, what was your reaction when the pick was made?
What the bleep are you people doing? Like, you just screwed up this draft. I don't get it. I do not understand. There's no inkling of understanding of how they are approaching this, because you signed the money, you throw all of the money at the quarterback because you say, hey, we've got a great team, we've got our offensive weapons, we got a new head coach that's not going to screw us up like last year. We just need the quarterback. Let's go get the guy whose wife wants to be back home. Let's throw a ton of money at him. And when you make the move of signing Kirk Cousins, you're essentially saying, we believe our team can compete next year. And now, guess what? You got an even bigger gift. You get the 8th overall draft pick with all of these weapons. Not one defensive player has been taken. If you wanted to go another wide receiver, do it. You can make this team great in a matter of an evening. And instead, you screwed the whole damn thing up by bringing in another quarterback and starting things off about as poorly as the Washington Commanders did with their quarterback, because Kirk Cousins didn't even know the hell you were doing. It just doesn't. It feels like it's a shot back at the ownership that was willing to throw the money at Kirk Cousins because they're like, hey, we want to win. We want to win now. And instead you waste an 8th overall pick on a quarterback that's not going to be starting for you for the next 4 years.
Yeah, I I was stunned because I was on the air yesterday saying when we saw the reports of Bo Nix to the Rams in the first round saying you shouldn't do this when you have the franchise quarterback in place. Instead, use that draft pick, either trade back and get more capital because it probably would have been a reach for a defensive player at 8, but who cares? Sure. You're going to end up getting the guy you want with that selection. Or you end up taking another one of those weapons, a wide receiver like Adunze was still on the board. Why not add to the wide receiver room? Hell, he's a hell of a talent. To me, this was a waste of a draft pick. And you're not even getting the quarterback. Like, the whole reason you take a quarterback in the first round is that fifth-year option, and he's super cheap. And then when teams have to pay their quarterback, we see the downfall. Look at Buffalo. Look at Cincinnati, who's going to have their defensive end, Trey Hendrickson, and one of their wide receivers ready to get out of town because they're ready to get paid. Penix is going to sit on the bench for 2 years. Like, this made no sense to me whatsoever. And I saw ownership. I saw the video, like all these teams releasing the video. Ownership looked like they went up to the GM and went, I thought we were bluffing. and then they take the quarterback. And by the way, this ownership group decided to stick with this GM over hiring Bill Belichick. Like, it was baffling to watch this move.
Belichick was shocked.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm
That's a guy who can't even draft.
Belichick was like, hey, man, I kind of like Michael Penix Jr., but at number 8 overall,
it's not even 8. It's to a team that has Kirk Cousins as their quarterback.
That's a great point, Alex. I actually don't mind selecting Michael Penix Jr. And in fact, if they had not paid Kirk Cousins,
makes all the sense in the world.
Like if they had gone out and signed
Sam Darnold,
Sam Darnold, or
traded
Jacoby
for Justin
Brissett,
Fields.
Whatever, like one of those moves where you just kind of got a stopgap option, where they're going to start for a year, you didn't spend significant resources on them. I'm all in on them selecting Michael Penix Jr. I think it's a super intriguing fit. I mean, you've got guys that can win over the top. Like, it's really interesting to me. Let me give you the numbers on what it would take for them to get out of the Kirk Cousins contract in the future years. If they wanted to get out of it before the start of this season, $90 million, dead cap. $90 million.
Arthur Smith is like, damn it, guys.
If they want to get out of it prior to next year, $65 million. If they want to get out of it prior to the 2026 season, 3 years from now, $25 million in dead cap. So the reason why that's important, and this is why for anybody that's saying, guys, they're just trying to do the Green Bay model, this is actually really smart. Yeah, if it was like 2 years from now, it'd be really smart. The reason why it doesn't make sense, in my opinion, even with that in the back of your mind, is because the advantage of the young quarterback in the NFL today is how much you pay them. It's I can build this super team around my young quarterback right now because of how little I have to spend on the most important position in the sport. The Falcons will not experience that until 2027 at the earliest, because they are going to pay at a minimum $25 million for Kirk Cousins to go play elsewhere in 2027. So between Cousins and Michael Penix Jr., you're still paying at least $30 million in 2026, for Penix to be your starter with Cousins going elsewhere. That's after 2 years of Cousins being your starting quarterback. And then in 2027, you have 1 year, literally one season in which you get the full value of having that young quarterback. But by then, it's already too late, man. Now I have 1 year to build that roster around Penix before I then have to have the fifth-year option in place, which is $25 to $30 million at that point, and I'm paying my quarterback again. There's no value here for them. It makes no sense. And if they did this and it was like the 28th pick and the opportunity cost was we can either get this guy or a dude that probably could have gone in the second round, whatever. You're picking 8th. You're picking with the 8th overall selection when every single defensive player is available to you. Like, go get Rome Odunze. I know you don't need a wide receiver necessarily, but that guy has all-pro potential. So just take him. I'm baffled by this selection. I have not been this shocked and confused by a choice in the top 10 in a really long time.
Here's the thing that I just don't understand. People are texting in nonstop, which please do on the Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399-9646. But They're saying, well, work for Jordan Love. They did it right. You're saying that's wrong? Guys, Jordan Love was selected 26th overall.
Exactly. And if they had taken him 26th, I would have said great decision.
Yes. The Green Bay Packers were set to have success, and they said, let's get our successor because anything we take at 26 isn't going to make that much of a difference.
If their choice was Tyler Guyton, Nate Wiggins, Ricky Pearsall, or taking Michael Penix Jr., yeah, go ahead and take Michael Penix.
You were selecting 8th overall on a team that needed defensive help, and not one defensive player had come off the board.
Every single one of them is available.
You could have traded 8 to 13 to the Raiders, probably got a haul, and still selected a defensive player. Is Anthony Stalter standing behind me right now?
No, and it's even better.
Oh, let's go. Donnie Fandango, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, we got to take a hard right turn.
Yeah, we are so screwing the clock up here.
Now listen, we have to do this quickly because I have to speak at a luncheon.
You dressed up for this.
Yes, I
Donnie Fandango of 105.7 The Point joining us here in studio.
All right, do you want to play into the road?
I will kick your ass in the studio right friggin' now. Now listen, I got a couple things in which that I have to say. First and foremost, I have no idea what Brandon Beane is doing. As I look at these trades, he legitimately is like sort of nickel and diming so that we can have a higher 3rd and 4th round pick, and I don't understand it. All right? That's that, Alex. And I love you, and I'm only talking to you.
You're yelling at me.
These other two guys, no, I'm not yelling at you.
Okay.
I'm just
venting.
here.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah. No, I'm here, buddy.
There is not a more brazenly arrogant fan base than the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yep.
Specifically Brandon Kiley.
Oh, my God, yes.
Oh, that is so true.
Why in the world would you text me last night unless you're trying to pick a fight with me?
Oh, he did.
Oh, absolutely.
The first words, Bills, question mark? It's like, really? Come on, look, Don, he's got a tone problem, but he does it in text, too. Unbelievable.
And the worst part about it is,
for those that aren't familiar with what we're talking about, the Chiefs traded up last night to the Bills' selection to take the fastest wide receiver in the history of the NFL Combine.
And let me ask you this, guys. And let me ask you this over the course of the last couple of years of watching Bills football.
Yeah.
What does Josh Allen do on a regular basis? He overthrows.
Yeah.
That is absolute horse nonsense. All right? What does he do? He overthrows receivers.
Yeah.
So what do? You get him a gosh dang cheetah and let that guy catch the freaking ball.
Kansas City knows all about cheetahs, don't they?
Oh, absolutely so. Now you're digging on me, too.
Oh, no.
Was that a Tyreek Hill thing?
No, that wasn't, man. I was just saying I understand your pain right now.
So the worst part about all of this, the worst part is that BK's right. That's the worst part.
Dude, that's what I lose sleep over at night.
That is the most maddening part, is that I want to be mad at him and say that he's wrong and, like, pick apart these things. But it's impossible because he's correct. And the reason that the Chiefs have won 2 Super Bowls in the last however many years is because of their ability to judge talent, especially judge talent in the first couple of rounds. And I'm incredibly frustrated. But, guys, listen, I have to go record 2 breaks, and then I have to be at the Hilton Frontenac in like 12 minutes.
We love you, Donnie.
So I have to go. I apologize for saying bad words to you last night, Brandon. I really love you.
Donnie, really quick, what hurt worse, the wide right or last night?
Donnie, go.
See, dude.
Don't. I say, dude, don't. You gave him an opportunity, man. What you needed to do was stay to it and walk out of the damn room, Donnie.
We love you, Donnie. Thank you for hopping in.
I love you guys
Don't
very
listen to this, guys. Donnie Fandango, ladies and gentlemen.
One of the best in the business. There's nobody better.
I honestly feel so much better after that. So much better.
I texted Donnie last night.
Yeah, you're a real jerk, man. You're a real jerk. I
had to do it.
You don't
I like it,
wallow
though.
in someone's pain.
I enjoyed it. I even jumped in a little bit.
Donnie texted me individually after the group text, and he goes, I bleep and hate these guys.
So I just texted him. I said, hey, buddy, what do you think the Bills are doing?
See, that's even worse, man. That's the tone problem. I told T-Bone to try and get Boys to Men End of the Road up while Donnie was talking there.
Wish my computer worked.
I wanted to see him go just loose.
Said the Bills traded us for Mahomes. We jumped them for McDuffie. They got stuck with Kyer Elam.
God.
Now they gave us Worthy. I love the Bills. Oh, and there's the 13-second game and the wide right kick. What a beautiful rivalry this is that we're building.
My God. You really, literally, that man was on the ground bleeding, and you walked over and you said, here's some salt, Donnie.
Yeah.
And dumped it in him.
Pick at the scab. I like it.
You didn't pick at the scab. You grabbed the scab and ripped like a Band-Aid.
It was really wonderful last night. I enjoyed it a lot. So which quarterback do you guys think is in the best position to succeed on their new
Patrick
team?
Mahomes.
Well,
sorry.
You know, the quarterback selected. There were 6 of them, by the way, last night.
Bo Nix, ladies and
quarterback
gentlemen.
selections. Congratulations to the Knicks family. It's too bad he didn't last until the Rams. They might have selected him.
They were going to.
Because his dad played football with Les Snead, the whole thing.
They wanted him. They wanted him.
But Bo Nix ends up going 12 to the Denver Broncos. J.J. McCarthy, the Michigan quarterback, national champion, known winner. J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah, okay.
He goes 10 overall to the Minnesota Vikings. 8 is Michael Penix Jr. I still don't understand it. Drake May to the Patriots, Jaden Daniels to Washington, and Caleb Williams to the Chicago Bears. Alex, which quarterback do you think landed in the best position to succeed?
It's Williams. None of these other guys have weapons, and now Caleb Williams is coming to a team with DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Rome Odunze. Now, the hope is going to be he doesn't sit on his butt the entire time in Chicago, but he's got the best offense around him, and frankly, I think he's got a team that can make the playoffs next year.
Yeah, I think it's Caleb Williams. He's got the best offensive weapons. I know the O-line's a problem, but he can move. He's versatile, so I think he can avoid some of that. I know it's a chalky answer, but I agree. I think it's Caleb Williams.
So if I wasn't going to say Caleb Williams.
It's a BK game. Sorry.
So I agree with you guys. I think you're right. I'll go J.J. McCarthy. Have you guys looked at their weapons? Now, I know.
You got to be good at quarterback if you want to be in a good position to succeed.
Stelter's going to get mad at me because I'm doing the thing where it's like, you don't build a fantasy football team here. We're playing football. I get it. He's right.
The NFL draft felt that way last night.
They have
Atlanta's
drafted.
trying to do it.
Their offensive line, first round, second round, and then a guard from the 6th round. They've got some dudes up front, and we'll see if it comes together for them, but they've got some pretty decent offensive linemen. You've got TJ Hawkinson whenever he comes back healthy. They signed Aaron Jones this past offseason. I think people forget that. Really good running back. That was a really rough spot for them last year. Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, a good head coach, play caller, and Kevin O'Connell. I think J.J. McCarthy, if there is any chance of him being good, we will see it in Minnesota. I don't feel that way about Bo Nix. Even if he's good, I don't know that this is going to be a situation where he can find a way to succeed. It's going to be really hard for them. Drake May, if they don't get one of Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk, I don't know how we could possibly see him be good this year. It's going to be so hard because of the receivers and the talent around him. Jaden Daniels, we'll see. He has a style that could maybe work, and he's got a receiver with Terry McLaurin. Maybe it can work. Caleb Williams and J.J. McCarthy, those are the two that I think we'll know right off of the bat if this is going to be something that can be successful.
And I think it's going to be Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels are going to be the two that you walk out of next season saying, damn, what good drafts. And if Penix would have gone to Vegas, I truly think Vegas would have had that with Penix. But instead, Atlanta ruined everything.
Yeah, I think the only guy you'll walk out this season and feeling really good about is probably Caleb Williams. I think Jane Daniels, I just don't know. I think he could totally end up being like Justin Fields, where you can dream on it, but it just never pans out.
He's Alex Ferrario. That is Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, who are the Blues' most untouchable players? That is something that our guy, Jeremy Rutherford, Blues analyst, Blues insider for The Athletic, wrote about earlier today. We'll give you our thoughts on his article coming up in about 15 minutes or so. You guys ask us any questions that you might have, sports or otherwise, and ask us anything. That's coming up at 11:45. 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line. The YouTube chat is off and running. It's called The Graveyard. That's what they affectionately call themselves over on YouTube at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. But coming up next, Alex, typically when there's an outfielder that goes on to have success elsewhere via trade from the Cardinals, there's a whole lot of criticism here in St. Louis. I don't feel like we're seeing that with Richie Palacios. Why does it feel different in that one? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. So how you feeling about that Richie Palacios deal right now? Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Richie Palacios, with the Tampa Bay Rays so far this year, is batting .265. He's getting on base 38% of the time. He has an OPS of roughly 800 so far this year. Alex, when something like this happens for the Cardinals, we typically hear a lot about it. Cardinals fans that text us basically every day saying, the Cardinals lost this trade, guys. Why didn't they keep player X, Y, or Z? Well, we haven't been getting a whole lot of that with Richie Palacios. And maybe that's because he's in Tampa Bay, and so there's just not a whole lot of highlights that you see, because Tampa is a team that is kind of nameless and faceless, and they don't get a whole lot of publicity, despite them being good most years. But if you put him on the Cardinals right now, based on their qualified hitters, he would rank 4th in batting average so far this year. He would have the 3rd best on-base percentage, and by OPS, he would also be 3rd. He'd be one of your best hitters so far. And you have a need currently in the outfield. The thing is, you got a good pitcher out of this. Andrew Kittredge has been fantastic for the Cardinals so far this year. And it clearly gave the Cardinals something that they desperately needed in terms of a legitimate high-leverage reliever. I said at the time, love the process. You traded cash for an outfielder that was literally just a, can we hit the jackpot here? It was a lottery ticket scratch off. And they scratched it off, and they had something there. He showed it down the stretch, and they used his playing time down the stretch in September to be able to find out what Richie Palacios is capable of. And based on that month and a half or so of playing time, the Tampa Bay Rays said, hey, this is something that we would value. We will give you this pitcher for him. Good process by the Cardinals, in my opinion. I loved the trade at the time. I still love it today, and I absolutely will not criticize them for making that deal. But, Alex, this is the kind of deal that they would typically get criticism for, because they traded a multi-year control player for a reliever with 1 year of club control remaining. Do you still like the deal today as much as you did at the time that it was made?
I do. I'm not sold on, like, this is Randy Arozarena 2.0 and the Cardinals screwed up, and then the next superstar is going to go on to Tampa and have success. Like, Richie Palacios started off hot. Let's see what Richie Palacios looks like through an entire season, because I don't believe he's played an entire Major League Baseball season yet in his career. So before I get over my skis and sit here and say, like, oh, man, you let another one go, I'll stick with the bullpen arm that seems to be solidifying an area that has been the biggest flaw for the Cardinals over the last few years. You've got multiple guys that you trust right now. And as much as I love Richie Palacios last season, and you love the hot start that he's off to right now, when at full strength, I don't think Richie Palacios is playing on this team. Richie Palacios is sitting on the bench as a 4th or 5th outfielder when Walker's hitting, if Carlson Edman is hitting, and when Nootbaar is hitting. Richie Palacios is not an everyday starter on this team. And now you got a every game option that you can go to in a high leverage situation. So I will never look back on this one and say, oh, what another mistake by the Cardinals, because I can't get upset over a 4th or a 5th outfielder.
Yeah. Now, do I think Richie Palacios may end up being better than some of the outfielders on this roster? Yeah, I do. But I think in terms of where they were and in a desperate spot to need a reliever, and again, like, who knows? Palacios could have ended up being a one-hit wonder. Yeah, I still don't mind the trade. And Kittredge has worked out. You know, if Kittredge was awful this season so far and they were talking about having to DFA him, okay, then it's a different conversation. But this is one of those classic win-win baseball trades. They don't happen very often, but when they do, both teams should celebrate. And the Cardinals found what they were looking for. They needed to revamp that bullpen. They're able to take that small sample size of Palacios and capitalize on it. And honestly, I don't know if they would have gotten Kittredge for anybody else on the roster. Carlson probably wasn't going to get him. His value was down. Palacios had skyrocketed from what you saw in his small sample size last year. Like, it just made a ton of sense for the St. Louis Cardinals. And I have no issues with the process still to this day. I was with UBK when they made the trade. Like, was I upset to see one of my favorites go in Richie Palacios? A little bit, but you know what? It made good baseball sense. So I'm not upset about the trade still.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. And the other thing is, like, guys, with Richie Palacios, if he was still here going into spring training, the expectation would have been for the Cardinals that he started the year in Memphis. Like, think if healthy. Because at that point in time, you had Jordan Walker, you had Lars Nootbaar, Brendan Donovan, You still at that point thought that Tommy Edman would be ready to go for opening day. Dylan Carlson would be ready to go for opening day. And then beyond that, you've also got outfielders that can play out there like Alec Burleson. Like he just had almost no clear path to making the big league club on opening day when they made this deal. And so that for me is something that should have and did influence the decision to trade him. And they might end up being wrong. They might have selected the wrong guy to bet on, but they also clearly were dealing with a team in the Tampa Bay Rays that wanted Richie Palacios. I don't know that they would have had the same value. In fact, I would bet they didn't place the same amount of value on a guy like Dylan Carlson. They probably look at Carlson and some of the underlying numbers, especially the batted ball data, and say, that guy doesn't hit the ball hard. That's not somebody that profiles as a Tampa Bay Ray. Why would we go make that move? So for me, I think it was a really smart move at the time. I continue to believe that it is today. It reminds me a lot, although with less control, of the move they made to send Luke Voit to the Yankees. And in return, they got Giovanni Gallegos. There were people that criticized that deal, and I just think that's silly. You ended up getting a high-leverage reliever who was one of the best in the game for a number of years for a guy that never would have started for you here in St. Louis, and Luke Voit. And then went on, and other teams didn't value him either. Got DFA'd a couple of times, got traded. Like, I think the Cardinals ended up making the right choice there, and they made the right choice here. Richie Palacios went on elsewhere. The reason why this one's different is because you got something of value. That's the reason why it's different this time around.
Yeah, and the Cardinals have done, to most credit, a good job of doing these small little trades that you never know if it's going to pan out for either side. But you mentioned the Voit for Gio deal. Guys, I got Jojo Romero for Edmundo Sosa, who's a legitimately decent ball player, but he's always was going to be a utility player. And the Cardinals knew they had a Brendan Donovan in the system. They knew that you can always go find a utility player, develop a utility player, and they were able to trade Sosa for another reliever in Jojo Romero, which they did a good job of evaluating. Because I remember he was in the minor leagues, had no success with Philadelphia, and they brought him in, were able to kind of mold him a little bit and fiddle his knobs, and able to get him to be a legitimate left-handed reliever out of their bullpen. Like, these are the small trades that good organizations do, and that John Mozeliak's done a pretty good job of in recent years to get these back-end bullpen arms.
Somebody on the text line said, BK, you can't honestly believe that Palacios had more value on the trade market than Dylan Carlson. I absolutely believe that for the Tampa Bay Rays, who had the reliever that you were targeting, Richie Palacios had more value to them than Dylan Carlson. I 100% believe that.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because of the batted ball data. Dylan Carlson does not hit the ball hard. Richie Palacios does. And for the Rays, that's the kind of metric that they'll look at and say, there's something here with Palacios, and we saw it for about a month and a half, and based on the batted ball data that we have available to us, if we get this right, if we target the right player here, the upside is real. And we think we could get 3 really good years out of him before we trade him elsewhere. Meanwhile, with Dylan Carlson, they're probably looking at the batted ball data and saying, probably a decent outfielder for us. Not sure the upside's there. So why would we trade for him when we can get this other guy that has real upside of being probably not an all-star caliber outfielder, but like on the cusp of that, you know? That's the way that they operate. So I absolutely believe that
and
they
he had more control,
like
I believe.
Yeah.
Carlson.
I think it's not by a lot, but a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, because he's in pre-arb still. And I think Carlson's in arbitration, starting arbitration. Like, I definitely believe he had more value than Dylan Carlson. Yeah. And he played better than Carlson last year in the small sample size.
It sounds crazy because of the prospect capital that is behind Dylan Carlson, but man, that stuff goes away pretty quickly. Teams see you in the big leagues. Like, who's the kid that the Seattle Mariners traded down to Atlanta this offseason? Kelenic was one of the top prospects in Major League Baseball. Like, he was up there with Jordan Walker. And now he was traded in what essentially amounted to a salary dump. So, yeah, this stuff goes really quickly.
Not good for Jordan Walker, if that's the case.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get to Ask Us Anything. But next, I got to ask Alex, who are the most untouchable Blues players going into this offseason? We'll get his perspective on that next here on 101 ESPN.
Jared Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals will be back in action tonight as they visit the New York Mets. Game 1 of a 3-game weekend. Seth Miles Michaels gets to start for St. Louis. 6:10 will be first pitch tonight. And the NFL Draft continues here on 101 ESPN today as we'll have coverage starting tonight at 5 o'clock. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So earlier today, Jeremy Rutherford put out a new piece on The Athletic. It breaks down all of the most untouchable Blues players heading into the offseason. Alex, under the untouchable category, he had exactly 2 players for your St. Louis Blues. He said it's Robert Thomas and Colton Parayko. Do you agree with that? Would you add anybody else into that criteria?
I would add Binnington.
Same, brother.
I can understand him being in the expect them back, and in JR's mind, he even put it on there. Like, look, if the Blues get wowed by an offer, Leon Draisaitl, I think we're all on the same page. Like, yeah, you can move on from Binnington in that sense. But I would put him in the untouchables because I think he's going to be way too critical for this team next year.
Yeah, I would put Benner in that conversation of the untouchables just because, and we've talked about it since the All-Star break of the season, even as we've seen just a handful of games in the playoffs. Man, you don't have a goaltender like Jordan Binnington can perform in the playoffs. You're in for a long road ahead of you. So that's why I'd say Binnington, you got him locked up. He clearly can play in the playoffs. If you've got a solid number 2 behind him like they had this year, he can be a regular season goaltender as well. I think he got wore out in previous seasons. He's an untouchable for me. I don't care what you offered. I would not trade Jordan Binnington.
What about Neighbors?
I was just going to say Neighbors deserves to be in the untouchables. And I like the type of player I think you can find.
Here's a follow-up question for you on that. What about Brady Tkachuk? If Brady Tkachuk was made available this offseason and Ottawa said the starting point, the first player we need included in this deal is Jake Neighbors, are you saying no, or are you saying I'm willing to at least discuss it? Because if you're saying no, he is truly an untouchable. If you're saying I'm willing to discuss it, then he's not an untouchable for you.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Because I mean, essentially, Neighbors
the
you
role
hope becomes Tkachuk.
Like that's or like 70% of Tkachuk.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess he wouldn't be an untouchable then. Because, if a Tkachuk becomes available and you say Jake Neighbors is the starting point, I'd say, yeah, okay. I mean, Tkachuk is 26 years old. He's under contract, and he plays to the level that Jake Neighbors you hope. And I was going to say the work ethic of Jake Neighbors is why I would consider him an untouchable, but I'm getting the work ethic of a Brady Tkachuk in that same spot. So, yeah, I guess he would expect to be back.
And the only reason I'm even bringing that up is because there's at least been some buzz that he could be moved. Like, the reason why I'm not
Not Neighbors, Tkachuk.
Correct.
Yeah.
I should have clarified there. The reason why I said Binnington is truly an untouchable for me is the only guy that the guys that you would trade him for aren't getting traded. Yeah. Like Draisaitl, for all the talk that we had yesterday, the guy's not getting moved. No. And if he is, he gets to determine where he goes next. Because it really will be about, hey, where am I willing to sign an extension? And that no-move clause will kick in. But you're probably not getting Leon Draisaitl is the point.
Dang it.
So Benner is an untouchable. I'm with you, Alex.
Son of a...
Neighbors is a very hard to believe I would trade him, but not a legitimate untouchable for me. So I would have him in the next criteria, which is what JR has next. Expect them back. I expect Jake Neighbors to be back on this roster. I think we're all in the same category there. He also has Joel Hofer in that area. Do you guys agree with that sentiment? Joel Hofer, expect him to be back by the start of next season.
And in JR's piece, he put it to where it's like Brady Tkachuk once again. That's the guy that gets brought up. Everybody wants goaltending, and especially goaltending that has proven it at the NHL level. I wouldn't put him at an untouchable. I wouldn't put him at a staying put probably because I think you have to make me a really good offer if I'm moving on from Joel Hofer.
Yeah, that's where I am. He's not an untouchable, but it's almost like it has to be like the Godfather offer or the unbelievable, like I can't believe that guy's available. It's a once-in-generation talent. We have to go get him. Then you offer up Joel Hofer because he is in the backup role, and he's only proven it for one season. And as much as I love what Joel Hofer did this year, to get a solid backup, you can always go find somebody on the market. You can go fill that role with a veteran. It may not have the same effect as Joel Hofer, but you can always fill that role on the free agent market like the Blues have done in the past.
Is there anybody else you would add to this category, Alex? Because those are the only other two. So he had Benner in here. We have him in the untouchables. But Neighbors, Hofer are the only other two that he has in the expect them back category.
I would
you
two
add
more
any players?
Nick Leddy and Alexei Toropchenko. And look at the world we've come to with Nick Leddy, because last offseason we were talking about getting rid of this guy for whatever we could. You can't overlook what Nick Leddy did this season with Colton Parayko. I still believe the best place for him would be the second pair and getting a number one defenseman to play with Parayko. But Leddy and Toropchenko would be in that expect them back category, because Leddy's defensive play, and you need a player like Alexei Toropchenko that plays with that work ethic. So those are the two.
I'll add two more players to that list. One is not because you want this to be the case necessarily, but I don't think anybody's taking on Braden Shen, and I would be shocked if he's traded this offseason. Shocked.
Yeah. I don't think you can move on from Braden Shen. I know people are thinking it's a down year. I'd like to see, if it's a down year again, then we can have the conversation. I really think the captaincy and everything that took place this season wore on him. I would lean more towards Shen gets back to the player we expect him to be next season.
And also, I just don't see other teams clamoring for a guy at his age that's making his kind of money and had his kind of production this past season with injury questions in his past. So between those two things, the Blues believing that there's more there, other teams not valuing him the way that they maybe once did, I don't see any scenario in which Braden Shen is traded this offseason.
Can I guess the other one you're putting into this? Nathan Walker.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Kyrou?
Nope.
All right, good.
Bolduc.
It's going to be kind of mad if it was
Zach
Kyrou.
Bolduc. Yeah. This is a team that is in a retool right now. They believe in him, and we have heard a lot from people in and around the organization. They were really happy with what they saw from Zach Bolduc this season. He took a legitimate step forward. His game is more well-rounded than I think, for me, I can speak for myself, than I expected it to be. Yeah, he's going to make some silly mistakes, and there's going to be times where he trips over and the puck goes in the back of your net going the other direction. Those are learning moments. That's what this time in your life cycle as an organization is for. I would say Zach Bolduc, I'd be shocked if he's not back next season.
The reason I wouldn't put him there, and look, after we had the conversation with him last week, I was like, man, I'm more on board with Zach Bolduc than I originally was, just because I think he's the work ethic side of Neighbors. I'm hesitant with it because that one feels like, I don't know if I need a Godfather offer for a Bolduc. What if I get somebody that's 2 years advanced from Zach Bolduc in a team? Let's take Salt Lake City, for example. They say, you know what, we're gonna take a couple more years. Let's move on from a Lawson Krause, and we want Zach Bolduc. That one I would consider, because I got a faster NHL player over a Bolduc, but I would still be very hesitant to move him because of what we saw last season and the conversations we had with him, to where it feels like he's going to have a really good year next year.
All right, the guys that he put in the staying put probably category starts with Jordan Kyrou. We're all in the same spot with him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's a big move, the way you feel about Bolduc, that's how I feel about Kyrou. I would be really surprised if Kyrou is traded this offseason after talking to Doug Armstrong. And also, if a true star becomes available, that team will likely ask you, especially if they're in a market that is not particularly desirable, that team will likely ask you about Jordan Kyrou because of his current contract status instead of Pavel Buchnevich. So if in that scenario, I could see them listening. But that is the only scenario I could see in which they're listening.
I actually think the more we're talking, I would move him down to staying put, I think.
They expect them back?
No, yeah, take him from expect them back and drop him down to staying put, I think.
Okay. So the lower category of being less likely to be back.
Yeah.
Interesting. Explain that.
I look at it and I understand what Doug said, and look, you are expecting a breakout year, but I think behind closed doors, there's more to it than what Doug Armstrong is saying. And I have to imagine over the last 2 seasons of seeing the ups and downs and the inconsistencies, it will be let's see what's out there. If somebody is willing to make a hockey deal, a hockey trade, that a player's not working where they are at, or if we feel like that this guy might benefit our team better, I would not put it past them to say, you know what, Jordan Kyrou for player X, Y, or Z, that makes sense for us and it makes sense for Jordan Kyrou. I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility.
It's interesting because I kind of teeter between what you're saying and where we have him currently.
I would actually be more likely to put him in the expect him back category than putting him lower than the probably staying category.
I think I would too, just because hearing Doug speak at the end of season presser, it felt a lot like when he get asked, what was it, 2 years ago, like, hey, Colton Parayko, his numbers say this, and he'd say, well, the numbers don't tell the real story of the Colton Parayko. I think what they learned about Kyrou this year, I think there are frustrations still behind the scenes of like, man, why can't he put this together consistently? I think they've just come to the realization, man, this is what a 30 to 40 goal scorer looks like, and we know he can't be on our top line. Like, I think they just kind of now have realized this is a second line winger, and we need to build forward with him being a second line winger. Almost in the Vladdy role once it got towards the back half in St. Louis, where it was he was no longer an elite top-line winger, but he still had an elite shot and was an elite goal scorer. So you put him on that second line and you figure out what you're going to do on that top line.
All right, we'll go through these quickly. The others that he had in the staying put probably, or excuse me, the staying put probably category, which is untouchables, expects them back, and then the next category down. Oscar Sundqvist, we all agree with that, right?
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
You could put him in expect him back because he's injured. Nobody's trading for that.
Nathan Walker, agreed?
Yeah.
I agree.
Tyler Tucker?
Yep.
Yeah.
Zach Dean?
Yep.
Yeah.
I would go one below this on Dean, but I'm fine with it here.
Yeah. I don't think there's any benefit to move on from him unless a team is desperate to have him.
Kessel?
Yeah, I would put him there. I think he's a top 4 defenseman for you next year.
I would put him in the expect him back category.
Yeah, I'd move him up a notch.
He doesn't have enough value on a trademark. He has more value to you than he will to anybody else in the league.
He's a top 4 defenseman for you next season. So, yeah, I would put him in he's going to be back here no matter what.
And then one category down from there, staying put, I think. Pavel Buchnevich, Brandon Saad, Justin Falk, Scott Perunovich, and Nikita Alexandrov. Finally, the let's make a deal category, Krug and Hayes. Would you guys flip anybody in those two?
Let's make a deal. I mean, I think everybody would probably put Justin Falk in the let's make a deal.
Yes, please.
I would also put Scott Perunovich in the let's make a deal.
Yes, please.
I think you learned everything you needed to learn about him this season, and although he's going to cost you like $1 million in good depth there, if I'm not moving on from Torrey Krug, Justin Falk, then let's make a deal on Scott Perunovich. Because if somebody's got higher expectations or think that they can do what the Blues couldn't do with Dunn and Wallman, take your shot because it's not working here.
Yeah, I'd agree with those. I'd throw probably Saad in this conversation as well. I think you'd be open to moving a Brandon Saad this offseason. Just get a little bit more money off the books. Probably someone's going to want Brandon Saad. He's going to have value as a guy that can come in, guaranteed to score 20 goals. I don't know how he'll get there, but he always gets there. And he can be a third-line winger. Booch is the one that I don't know what to feel about because
Agreed.
I actually feel
I think
more.
they're going to re-sign him.
I do too. I feel more likely that he's going to get a contract extension. Now, if he doesn't, if he says, hey, man, if you're not going to give me 8 years or I don't want to stay in St. Louis, then he shifts back to the category that we're just talking about, and he ends up becoming the guy of let's make a deal.
I'd move Brandon Saad up. Veteran, 25 goals scored, and $4 million.
I just don't think he benefits you. I think they are in their life cycle.
I think it's valuable for the younger players to have that type of player, so you're not overusing it. But yeah, I think the Booch. I think the Blues are going to be 5 to 6, and Booch is going to be 7 to 8, and that's where the crossroads are going to erupt.
The thing with Saad is he might have value out there.
Yeah.
Like another team might look at his contract and say,
I think trade deadline is when that value kicks up a notch.
$4.5 million, super reasonable cost, only a couple of years left on his contract. This contract has aged so much better than any of the analytics people would have suggested. 2 more years left, and we're still feeling pretty good about where Brandon Saad is. Now, the Blues around him have not lived up to expectations.
The team didn't go well.
Brandon Saad was a really good signing by this team.
Absolutely.
He lived up to every possible expectation. All right, so that's where we're at. Untouchables, the true ones. Thomas, Parayko, Benner, guys that we would put into the let's make a deal category. Krug, Hayes, Perunovich, and Justin Falk. Coming up next is Ask Us Anything, 314-399-9646. If you got any questions, sports or otherwise, we'll get to them next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Let's get into Ask Us Anything. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for any questions you may have, sports or otherwise. From the 980, guys, do you think that Cody Schrader, the former Missouri running back, will be drafted into the NFL, or should we be expecting to see him in the UFL next season? I think he'll be drafted. You think he'll be day 3?
I was thinking he doesn't get drafted, but he gets signed.
I think somebody's going to take him, man. He has great vision.
Mr. Irrelevant.
So, I think he'd be a great fit for the Rams. Yes. I think he would be a really good fit in any of those Shanahan-style offenses where it's just a true zone running scheme. So, Minnesota would be a good fit. Atlanta would be a good fit.
San Francisco.
San Francisco would be a good fit. Miami would be a good fit, although he's not fast, so they probably wouldn't have him on their board. But any of those teams that are running that Shanahan style, Tennessee, Cincinnati, they would all be a spot that could make some sense for him. Yeah, I think he'll get drafted.
Yeah, I do too. I think he's probably a day 3 pick. Maybe he gets surprised and he goes in the 3rd. He reminded me a little bit of Chase Brown in college. And he went in the 3rd round, if I remember correctly, last year to Cincinnati. So I think he's more likely a day 3 guy, but maybe someone surprises and takes him in the 3rd round tonight.
314-399-9646 from the 636. Guys, do you think that Mason Wynn will continue batting over 300 for the remainder of the season? I would bet under 300 as his batting
I would
average.
say somewhere between 275 and 300.
I'd say 260 to 275, somewhere in that range.
But we're 240 to 250.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see he's really cooled off. I think he's got 2 hits in his last 20-something at-bats, but he's drawing walks, which is a good sign. So he's still keeping that on base up, and that's what you want if you're the Cardinals. I don't think he's going to hit for 300. Those slap hitters, you're going to run into some bad BABIP luck. So I think 250, 260, maybe on the best side he gets to 270 is where I think he goes.
314-399-9646 from the 636. BK, how detrimental do you think it would be for Mizzou football if they don't have a successful season this upcoming year? They got to. They have to be successful. I think they're building a really good program right now. And so for that reason, I don't think it... If you end up going 7-5, 8-4, it will be a massive disappointment and a failure for everybody involved. That being said, what's the result of it? I think you're still on a really good path right now. The recruiting has taken a massive step forward. They're still doing well in the portal, even right now. They just got another big-time offensive line recruit the other day. So I don't think it ends up in a situation where you're just screwed for future years. But, dude, this is the last year you got Luther Burden. You got Brady Cook for one more year. You got Theo Weiss for one more year. You got a lot of dudes that are on that roster where this is their final season. Most importantly, Luther. You got to take advantage. So it would set you back a little bit for sure.
Yeah, it would set them back, but I think they're in a really good spot because unlike with the Illini program that was, 2 years ago where they won 8 games, in that season I knew, hey, they can't have slip-ups, and they had 3 of them. 3 games they should have won, especially losing to freaking Connor Bazelak in Indiana, because Bielema did not have a recruiting class coming in. It was obvious, hey, this is a one-hit wonder. Enjoy it while it lasts, and hopefully you end up getting to the Big Ten title game, and then they ished the bet in 3 games and didn't.
From the 618, would you take over or under 75 wins for the Cardinals this year?
I'd take over. I'd put it at 80.
That's kind of where I am. I'd say over. I don't think we've talked about. I don't think the floor falls out from under them, so I'd say over.
Do you guys see the Cardinals picking up the option for Lynn or Gibson after this season? It's so early; it's so hard to tell.
I'd like to see if they finish healthy first. That's going to be my first bait. If you finish healthy, you pick up the option of one of them.
Let's also see how they're doing at the deadline because those guys could be pitchers that are traded.
No, man,
if things go south.
They're trying to compete.
I agree. I would bet against it. I just said I'm taking the over. I think they're still going to win 85 to 90 games. But if this thing goes south, those are definite options to trade at the deadline.
Yeah, I think you probably pick up one. I don't think you pick up both. And it also depends on, we don't even mention it, how does their pitching development go this year? Artine Kins, TK Roby, Michael McGreevy, Gordon Graceffel, are any of those guys ready to come in and throw 100 to 120 innings at the big league level next year? Because if they're not, you may have to pick up one, if not both of those options. If those guys do develop and you see 2 or 3 of those guys and you're willing to say, okay, let's basically throw it at the wall and see which one of these 2 stick, maybe you don't pick up any of them.
Final question. Guys, if you had to choose, who would be your leading candidate right now to take over as the Blues head coach next season? Let's say most likely candidate. Not the guy that you want the most, but the most likely candidate to be their head coach next year.
Man. I'll say Sheldon Keefe. I'll stick with it. I think he's going to get bounced in this series, and I think he's going to get fired.
Alex,
what has he ever done? I know. What does it mean to win a juniors championship and an American Hockey League championship? Sure, he complains about Brad Marchand. You know what? Everybody in the NHL complains about Brad Marchand.
I
gotta say, I think that some of the detractors on Sheldon Keefe, and we'll see. Like I don't. He might be a bad head coach. Who knows? But some of the detractors, they bring up what he's done in Toronto. Think about like the 3 things that you need to win in the playoffs.
All right. Depth down the middle.
Forechecking and cycle game.
Oh.
Defense. Goaltending.
Yeah.
Of those 3 things, how many do the Maple Leafs have?
So let me pull this up.
0.
Let me pull this up for you quick, real guys.
That's problematic. I don't know what he's supposed to do to fix that.
When did Sheldon Keefe take over as the coach? 2018? I'm going to pull this up real quick.
I'd say Bannister is my number 1 guy, though. I just run it back with him because I saw him have success.
Keefe took over in 2019-20.
Okay.
So the COVID year was his first full season.
I'm going to list off the goaltenders that the Toronto Maple Leafs have had since Sheldon Keefe has been there. And you tell me if that's a team that can win. Michael Hutchinson.
Stud.
Kazimir Kaskusio. Jack Campbell. Dave Rittich. Joseph Woll. Peter Mrazek. Eric Kallgren. Ilya Samsonov. Matt Murray. Jet Alexander. Martin Jones. Did any of you guys hear a number 1 goaltender? Did any of you guys hear a number 2 goaltender on that list I just gave you?
I heard some flash in the pans is what I heard.
Yeah, back in 2015. Give the guy a goaltender.
Mazurek?
Huh?
When did they have Peter?
2 years ago, he played 20 games for him.
Okay.
And had an .888 save percentage. Because guess what? They also don't have defensemen.
We should trade
he
Brayco
hasn't
there.
won anything. Guys.
They had Frederick Anderson at one point.
That was before him. And then they said, let's
No,
get...
he was there.
Wasn't it 2017 when Anderson was there?
2020 to 2021 COVID season. But he played 24 games.
And he was injured
good.
probably.
Next year he goes to Carolina as an all-star.
Yeah. Because guess what? Carolina has defensemen also in front of their goaltender.
That's tough.
Coming up in 15 minutes, what would you consider to be the bare minimum required for Miles Michaelis to have a successful season this year? We'll get into that coming up in just a little bit. But next, which NFL team made the biggest jump? We're now through the first round of the draft. We've seen most of the trades that will, change teams in meaningful ways. Who made the biggest jump from where they were at the end of last season to where we are today? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. All right, so which team made the biggest jump from where they were at the end of the season to where we are today? Alex, we've seen free agency. There have been trades around the league. We now saw the first round of the draft, which is where, the tangible improvements typically come from in year one for teams as they get their rookies in place. There were some questions last night. Hey, is Brandon Ayuk going to be traded? Could Deebo Samuel go somewhere else? Could we see T. Higgins in a surprise deal? Trey Hendrickson suddenly, randomly, asked for a trade right before the draft. Could he get dealt? The answer to all of those questions was no. So, Alex, with where we were at the end of the year to where we are today, who do you believe took the biggest jump in terms of an improvement?
I've got 3 teams. 2 of them
I
are
asked for one, man.
No.
What is this, a T-Bone 3?
We all get one.
No, you don't.
You get one team.
Yeah, pick your
and
one
then you
team.
can add your honorable mentions
hair in my
afterwards.
mouth. No, man, you can't yell at me. This is my game
just
that I
turn
get to
your
play.
mic off.
You can.
get
Fine.
one.
My voice is
Who's your
loud.
team?
Houston.
There you go.
Houston's my team. They were awesome last year. They've got their franchise quarterback, which somebody called on this show. Somebody's a quarterback expert. And they went out and got another weapon for him in Stephon Diggs. I think they've got the right coach. They've got the right offense. Defensively, they're improving. Houston's my team.
The one for me, and I don't know if it's anything that's like big and sexy that is going to like stick out, like Houston, who adds Stephon Diggs. They add a pass rusher, which I do love what they did too.
That's Danielle Hunter, right?
Yeah, I would say the Detroit Lions. I think they fixed their secondary. And remember last year, I could get open in that secondary, and I'm out of shape. I got a beer gut. I got everything that should not allow me to get open.
You look good in that polo, though.
Thanks, man. But I could have gotten open in that secondary because it was trash. And they add in the corner from Alabama, which I just love. I love the fact that they were able to get him at 24 in Terrion Arnold. They got out and they add another piece in free agency. I love what they did this offseason to their secondary. They feel like a complete team. Last year, it was obvious they had a hole. This year, they feel well-rounded, and they feel like they could be a legitimate, I don't know if I'd say Super Bowl threat, but they're definitely going to be a threat in the NFC.
I think they're the second best team in the NFC.
I'd agree with that.
I think San Francisco's probably your first. I'd say they're the second best team.
I agree.
Yeah.
Alex, who was your third team?
No, man, you only got one.
I think I know who it is. Is it somebody from the NFC North?
It is?
Is it the Chicago
You're
Bears?
darn tune did it. I love it, man. It got great offense. Now, defensively, I don't know. They probably screwed that up not getting a defensive player, but there's still more to the draft. I love Chicago's draft yesterday, and I love the fact that you're adding Rome Odunze to DeAndre Swift, to Keenan Allen, and to DJ Moore. I think they've got the right offense in place, and it might not be a playoff team, but I think you're on the cusp of a playoff team, which is better than where you were.
All right, so that's who I was going to say, so I will go a different direction.
Look at me. I'm awesome. 3 of them.
Hear me out.
Don't say the team that I think you're going to say.
I'm not telling you that they're going to be really good. I don't think they're going to be. But if we're talking about improvement from where they were at the end of the season to where they are today, the Tennessee Titans is my answer. The Tennessee Titans, since the end of last year, have added a new center, one of the best centers in the NFL. I understand that, but I'm talking about improvement from where they were, which was horrible, to where they are today. I think they're average now. You added Calvin Ridley. You had J.C. Latham, a new left tackle for you. So now you've improved at center and at left tackle. You got your guard last year in the first round as well. You got a really good left side of your offensive line. You took a right tackle in the second round a couple of years ago, okay? Right side is getting a little better there. You also, on defense, added a couple of pieces. Kenneth Walker, Chidobe Awuzie, L'Jarius Sneed. I don't think the Titans are going to be great this year. I think the Titans this year could be what the Vegas Raiders were last year. And I was confused by their plan when they signed Calvin Ridley. I thought it was weird. As I'm looking at it a little bit more now, I think the plan is this. They don't know if Will Levis is good or not, but they're going to find out this year if he is. Because you now have Calvin Ridley, Treylon Burks, and DeAndre Hopkins as your weapons. You've improved in front of him. You have a real offensive line that can capably block in front of him. Now I can find out, I can evaluate my quarterback and see, is this dude the guy or not? And if he is, great, let's go. Now we're going to continue throwing resources at it. If he's not, next year you go into the draft and you find your guy. And now I've got the infrastructure around him to where that guy can be put into the system and right away can have some success if that guy ends up being a good player. So the team that I think outside of the 3 that you've already mentioned, Alex, that could improve the most from last year to this year, I think the Tennessee Titans could go from a 6-win team to like a 9-win team, maybe 10 if everything goes their way, if they end up being right about Will Levis.
And I think that, to your point there, that division, I don't think the division's that great. So, like, 10 wins?
Yeah, that might win it.
It's going to keep them close. Like, they may win it. They may be right there because Jacksonville doesn't feel all that great. They haven't really replaced Ridley. They didn't select in the first round. They traded back, if I'm not mistaken, yesterday.
Jacksonville ended up getting the receiver out of LSU, Brian Thomas Jr.
That's right.
They did trade down to get him, though.
And then Indy, like, I like Indy, but, you got to raise the question of Richardson and his health. Now, you got Houston in the division. They're going to be a team to keep an eye on. They'll probably be the team that can potentially push them. But I think you're spot on with the Tennessee evaluation. They are someone that did improve. Quarterback is their biggest question mark. But, yeah, I think you're right. They surround them with an infrastructure, which is what you need. Otherwise, you can't evaluate them.
If we went the other direction, the team that ended up going in the wrong direction from the end of last season to where we are today. You guys want to say the same team on 3?
I don't think it's going to be the same team, but go for it.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay.
We'll do it all at the same time, though.
1, 2, 3. The
Minnesota.
Oh, Minnesota.
Yeah. I think you just wasted a 10th pick on a quarterback that's not going to be any good.
I just think you hate McCarthy.
I do not believe McCarthy's going to be good.
It's unbelievable.
That's
Give
fine.
him a chance.
I won't. Just like I didn't give Zach Wilson a chance. I hated his face, and his face turned out to show that he had no talent.
You were right.
And McCarthy, I don't like his face. Might not have talent.
Bad face.
Bad face.
Okay.
I don't like T-Bone's face sometimes.
That's fair.
I don't like PK's face all the time.
That's more than fair.
Sometimes when I wake up, I don't like my face.
We definitely prove you wrong a lot, though.
Not all the time.
So you're, in all seriousness, you're saying Minnesota because of, I mean, if they end up being
banking
wrong,
on a quarterback.
You went from Kirk Cousins, who was a top 15 quarterback in the league, to a bottom 5 quarterback, which means your team stinks. Yeah. Like, you're done. It's over. We saw what they looked like last year when they didn't have Kirk Cousins.
You have no running game. You have no running game because Madison was not good.
Aaron Jones.
Still, don't think that's going to work.
I like Aaron Jones.
I just don't think it's going to work to the way that they need it to work because McCarthy just needs to hand the ball off all the time. And, like, I don't buy it with him. I don't buy it as the franchise quarterback for a Vikings team that's sure they've got the weapons. Just don't buy it. I think they went the opposite direction with the 10th overall pick.
T-Bone, you're with me, though. You got the Bills, right?
Yeah.
Who the hell is he throwing to, man? What are you doing, Buffalo Bills? I will say this. If I was to argue the other side, because I believe what I just said. I don't understand what they're doing.
Come on, man. Donnie doesn't need to be coming back here today.
If I was to argue the other side and say, you know what, okay, what the Bills are doing is actually kind of understandable. They're accumulating a lot of assets right now in the draft to do one of two things. One, trade for Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel. Totally in play. They could do that today, and it wouldn't shock anybody. Shouldn't shock anybody. Two, they're just going to throw a bunch of resources at the receiver position.
And I thought they always wanted that, the kid from Texas, Mitchell. I thought that was the guy that they had originally wanted. At least I saw in the mock drafts.
Nobody knows. Yeah, right? Like, that. Could that be the guy that they're going after? Sure.
It would make sense if you traded back twice because you're like, well, he's not going to get him, so we just gained a ton of assets.
They now have the number 33, the number 60, the number 95, and the number 128 picks in this year's draft. You can get 2 receivers with those picks, 33, 60, 95, that could start for them next year. Because this is such an excellent wide receiver class. So if that's their plan, it makes a little bit of sense, but still. I don't love trading with the Chiefs to let them go up and get the receiver.
At least they got a quarterback.
The fastest 40 time in NFL history.
Yeah,
and they had to get rid of so many guys this offseason. I do feel like they're going in the wrong direction.
Another team that I'd throw in here because we've listed 2 and just go different. What the hell is Las Vegas doing? Yeah. Las Vegas's quarterback.
I kind of like it.
They've got Aiden O'Connell at quarterback. Relax.
No, they got Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, well, okay.
And we're going to Brock Bowers now. Tight ends don't work, man.
What would you have done if you were in their spot, though? They were in a really tough spot at that point in the draft.
I would have
traded back and, like, taken a defensive player or something like that.
But why not take the guy that you think could be a stud in Brock Bowers? Because, like, if a quarterback becomes available next offseason, either via free agency trade or in the draft.
Who knows? Kirk could be available.
Or Michael Penix Jr.
They do have a really good situation for a new quarterback next offseason. I think the Raiders are really interesting.
I think they're wasting Devontae Adams. Yeah. Like, Devontae Adams, you're another year in which you've had Devontae Adams and you're not maximizing.
You're getting more weapons.
What was your alternative? 6 quarterbacks went in front of them. They had the 13th pick and everybody was
aggressive.
Gone.
What they need, I was going to say, what they have to do is you've got to trade up. You've got to go get the quarterback. Like, you can't just sit on your hands and say somebody's going to come out.
I think you could have made Atlanta trade out if you tried hard enough.
I don't think so. Clearly,
I don't think they would have traded out. You've got to make the Godfather offer to somebody. Like, you can't leave the draft and say there are 6 first-round quarterbacks.
I think they got screwed. I think they believed that one of those guys was going to be there. Their intel was wrong, obviously. And
that's bad.
But they're stuck. But if they get a really good player in Brock Bowers.
But if this dude's not, like, a superstar, you set yourself back a couple of years because that was a top 15 pick.
It was 13th pick. Like, the guys that were still there, defensive players, and clearly the NFL did not think this was a good defensive class. None of them went in the top 14 picks or tackle, and they're okay at tackle right now.
But I don't think you can argue that they are a better team today than they were last year. Like, I think they're worse.
They added Christian Wilkins this offseason. Now, Christian Wilkins is a stud, dude. That's a really good... Their defensive line is going to be a terror for opposing teams.
You know what you got to do to win?
You score points.
You got to score points. And they're not going to be able to do that.
Aiden O'Connell's not going to get it done.
Gardner Minshew was fine in Indy last year. I would not want him to start at quarterback for me if I'm going to try and compete. By the way,
I'm totally with you. I'm totally with you. But, like, I think their plan makes more sense to me right now than the Falcons' plan.
Well, yeah, but the Falcons' play makes no sense compared to, like, the Panthers
still. That's not a good bar to clear, man.
The Panthers look like a more competent organization after today.
All right, so that's where we're at. Teams that improved the most. Alex had Houston and Chicago. And who was your third team? And Detroit.
I love them all.
I had Tennessee. The teams that have, unfortunately, improved the least or gotten worse the quickest. The Bills are right at the top of that list. And Alex also had the Minnesota Vikings as a team that got bad.
Everybody just jump on the hate McCarthy train. It's a fun train to be on.
Coming up next, I'm actually going to be rooting for McCarthy because of you.
Well, now I'm rooting against him.
What is the bare minimum requirement for Michaelis to have a successful season in 2024? We'll tell you next here on BK and Ferrario. All right, so there's some big news in Major League Baseball. The Baltimore Orioles just announced this. Jackson Holliday going back down to AAA, Alex, after struggling in his first 10 games at the Major League level. And when I say struggling, I mean starting 2 for 34 with 18 strikeouts and 2 walks.
We're all thinking it, right?
He had a total of 1 RBI in his 10 games at the big league level. Alex, I think this is relevant here in St. Louis for obvious reasons with what we just talked about over the last couple of days with Jordan Walker. Jackson Holliday is considered to be one of the top prospects, if not the top prospect in all of Major League Baseball right now. He came up to the big league level and was totally overmatched, had no chance against big league pitching, and it was obvious from the first time that you saw him at the plate. I think this is another reminder, at least for me, of how different this level is than what you see at the AAA level, man. Because when you look at what he did at AAA, he was crushing the ball. Early on there in 10 games, batting .333 with an OPS over 1,000. Last year in 18 games at AAA, hit .267 with an 800 OPS. At AA last year, spent 40 games there with an OPS over 900. He was dominating in the minors. Came up to the big leagues, had no chance. If that doesn't remind all of us that this is a problem that is not just here in St. Louis, but is for all young players across Major League Baseball, I hope this serves as a reminder for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, this doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, this guy's even younger than Jordan Walker, talking 20 years old, and he's struggling. And I mean, by struggling, I mean, you're looking at like he's striking out almost every single time. He's got 18 strikeouts. And like I was with Jordan Walker, just to put that into context, Jordan Walker this season, where's he at in strikeouts?
Like 25%. It's not bad.
So it's not as bad as you're talking in the same scenario. So yeah, I mean, this is exactly what we've mentioned. Like, you're talking about not even rushing, because again, this guy's numbers in AAA were to the point where it's like you deserve to be called up. But if you're Baltimore, you're like, yeah, this is not working. Obviously, I don't even think it's a confidence thing. At least watching the video of Jackson Holliday being told he's going to the majors, it's not a confidence thing. This is just a matter of, look, you are not recognizing Major League pitching, so now you got to go back to AAA and figure it out.
Somebody on the text line makes an interesting point. It makes you appreciate just how great Albert Pujols was. He dominated from the get-go in 2001. And I think that is something that actually has a trickle-down effect to how Cardinals fans judge other young players, is that it's expected when they get hyped, the way that Walker was especially, where they say, hey, this is a guy that is our best prospect on the hitting side of things since Albert Pujols. People hear that from John Mozeliak, and I think it was really unfair to the kid, where they then assume, well, he's going to have the same kind of results early on as Albert Pujols does. Maybe not to the same degree, but he's going to hit the ground running, and it's immediately going to be successful. It's just so unfair to these kids when you put those kinds of expectations on them from the moment that they walk through the door at the big league level. Nobody's Albert Pujols, man. Nobody. And to expect that out of Jackson Holliday or Jordan Walker, it puts them immediately behind the 8 ball. What we're seeing with Jordan Walker is the norm. The exception is what we saw from Albert Pujols, or what you see from some of these other guys that immediately reach the
Henderson in Baltimore.
It's so rare. It is so rare, and it's what makes it so impressive when you see that happen for these guys. Alex, you said Jackson Holliday wasn't rushed. I think he kind of was. I think he was pushed to the big leagues at an accelerated pace, but it was because of what you said. He is crushing at every level, and so you feel confident that he can continue to do that as he reaches the next level. But to only play 28 games at the AAA level is probably unfair to him on some level. And now we got to the big leagues. He saw the pitching, and it was a totally different experience for him. My hope for him, my hope for Jordan Walker, they now take all of those lessons that they learned at the major league level back down with them to the AAA level, and they can hone in their craft a little bit. But this goes back to what you've been saying in recent days, Alex. One of the concerns is, yeah, but he's probably going to go down there and continue to crush the ball. Yeah. So at what point do you learn? And this is the difficult part of developing a player like a Jackson Holliday or like a Jordan Walker while you're trying to contend. It's way different. Jackson Holliday's probably not going back down to AAA if he's on the Chicago White Sox. They just let him take his lumps. Say, you're going to eventually figure this thing out at the big league level, and when you do, you're going to be a mainstay in our lineup, batting in the middle of our order. But when you're in Baltimore and you're trying to win now and you're trying to contend for a championship right now, you can't have this guy in your order on a day-to-day basis because it's an automatic out every time that he comes up to the plate.
Yeah, and I think I haven't watched a lot of Jackson Holliday, but my assumption is he's probably being exposed to one or two different pitches, just like we saw in Victor Scott, and maybe he has a mechanical thing like you've seen with Jordan Walker. And that's where I think Jordan Walker is. I don't think his is he's overmatched. I think it is he's got a mechanical flaw where that hip is flying out. So they've tried to work on it here at the big league level. He still can't seem to knock this bad habit. So you send him down to a less pressured environment and you work on it. It was clear Victor Scott was overmatched. He hadn't seen pitching like this. And a lot of guys don't, because like Holliday, Walker, Scott now all playing in AAA, which that'd be a hell of a fun game to attend if they play each other. They're just going to see fastballs and like mediocre breaking balls. They're not going to see like even a number 3 in a rotation, for example. Like the Cardinals are going to see Jose Quintana this weekend. Jose Quintana is like a number 3, number 4 starter, no matter what the Cardinals told you in 22. He can pick his spot with his fastball. He can pick his spot with his fastball. He can locate his curveball. He can locate a slider, and he can locate a changeup. You're not getting that at the AAA level, and that's where that adjustment comes. And that's why, to your guys' point, it is hard to figure out at what point do you have to figure it out at the big league level. I don't think the Cardinals were there yet with Walker. The Orioles are certainly not there yet with Jackson Holliday. I think for Walker's probably next year. Next year it is, hey, you got to figure it out at the major league level. For Jackson Holliday, it's probably next year, 2 years, and then you can start to have that conversation.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. Like I think after the second time that you've been sent down, and now that you're going to get more reps at Memphis, and if you have success again next year, if we're in the same spot in the middle of April and we're talking about sending them down, to me you're starting to get to failure territory, because you figured it out at the AAA level. You got to figure it out at the major league level. There's no more sending you down to get your confidence. You got to figure out how to get your confidence at the major league level.
Yeah, Jackson Holliday so far, just to your point, T-Bone, on what's gone wrong for him. There are some similarities to Walker last year. Not the one that we're seeing this year, but what happened to him last year when he was at the big league level. Way too many ground balls, 63% on the ground so far. And then there's the strikeout problem as well. And that's happening against fastballs and breaking balls. He's just seeing different kinds of velocity. That is actually pinpoint velocity now. And he's seeing different kinds of breaking balls that when you tunnel them together, the pitching ninja stuff where like it looks the same way for the first 40 feet and then goes in totally different directions. It's so hard to pick that up at the big league level, dude. These guys are so good. And I think it's something that fans, myself included, probably don't give it enough credit for. I don't know how anybody gets a hit anymore. The pitching is so freaking good. And then you get into the bullpen now, and you've got this parade of relievers that are throwing 97 plus with a wipeout slider or a breaking ball that has a hump, the likes of which you just don't see in the minor leagues. Good luck. Yeah. Good luck when you're 21 years old and that's the kind of pitching that you're facing for the first time.
And I think the reason that I would push back on it, like even Jackson Holliday being, rushed to the big leagues is, hey man, he's got to see it at some point, and he clearly is hitting AAA.
He's crushing at AAA.
And you're not going to see that at AAA. You're not seeing that kind of stuff at AAA. Even the bullpen arms don't have that filthy stuff at AAA, unless they're like, you see like the manipulation of the roster where they have to send a guy down. Maybe it appears in like 3 games.
Skeens is down there right now. You'll see it with him.
That guy, you'll see it, but like everybody else, you're not going to see it. So what do? I actually like the idea of, okay, you're hitting in 10 games. Who cares if it's just 26 games at AAA? Let's see if you are one of the rare few that can actually hit major league pitching the moment you step on a big league diamond. And if you can't, all right, well, you know what? You found out what it looks like. Now you can go down, work on a couple things, work on mechanics, work on lifting the ball if that's a problem, and then we'll see you right back up here in a couple months.
Can I get to one thing that we see on the text line right now that it does frustrate me a bit when I see it with Walker? Somebody said, guys, Walker had it figured out. The Cardinals changed his swing and they screwed him up. Just let him come up here and hit. The things that are screwing him up right now is what got him sent down so they could change his swing. He was opening up too much, and that was a problem for them. Yes, they did tell him to go down and try to get the ball in the air more. But what they were saying was not hit fly balls all day long. It was, Walker, when you're going to be at your best, you're going to be a line drive hitter. We need you to get the ball off of the ground because ground balls are the death of a hitter.
Yeah.
You play the BABIP game there. 30% of the time.
And last year it went in his favor.
Exactly. And 30% of the time it'll work out for you. But if you do that too long and you have a bunch of those ground balls that aren't hit quite as hard, you're screwed. It's game over for you as a hitter at the big league level. So that's where things get really difficult as an organization is what do we do here? Do we just let him continue to do this and eventually he'll grow out of it? Or do we try to change it now so that way we get better results now and for the future? And the Cardinals decided the latter was the best way to go about it. I don't know if they were right or wrong, but I do think that it's hard for me to say they completely screwed him up when the things that we're seeing right now that are a problem for him were the things that they were saying, this is going to eventually be a problem if we keep you here at the big league level. Let's go try to adjust. He did go down and adjust. It worked the rest of the season when he came back up. This year, their hope is that the same changes are made, and it will work out for him this year the way that it did last season.
And this will sound cruel, but I think it's the honest truth. If this is a prospect that it does not have star ceiling potential, you may live with it. You know, if this was like a Tommy Edman that comes up through your system, if he's a ground ball hitter, you say, okay, he's a speed guy. He's probably going to hit like 220, 230 in his career, and really his value is more his defense than his offense. You don't care about it. When you have Jordan Walker, who we were clamoring to sign to a contract extension because we think he's going to outprice himself, he could become a superstar, and I still believe that. Yeah, you want to send him down to work on these kind of things because the ceiling is so much higher. And I think it was Ali Marmol that told us last year at the ballpark, hey, man, you hit the ball on the ground, it's hard to be a superstar in this league. And that's true. When you think of guys that hit the ball on the ground, it's not superstars. It's kind of those utility guys that just kind of bounce around the hit in the 7-8 spot. If you believe Walker's a superstar, you got to get him to lift the ball.
He's Tanner. That's Alex. I'm BK. Coming up next, we're going to dive into some NFL quick hitters here on 101 ESPN.
Terrence here, the Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals will be back in action tonight as they start a 3-game set at the New York Mets. 6:10 will be first pitch. Miles Michaelis will get the start for St. Louis. Other news across Major League Baseball. Jackson Holliday, the top prospect in Major League Baseball, has been optioned by the Baltimore Orioles as he's on his way back to AAA. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, day 2 of the NFL drafts as rounds 2 and 3 will have coverage starting at 5 o'clock tonight. This Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, last night was round 1 of the NFL draft. We are on to the second day. Tonight, round 2 and round 3, you'll hear full coverage right here on 101 ESPN, beginning at 5 o'clock. Fastlane off tonight early for the NFL draft. How about that?
It's good for Anthony because I think he's only going to last about a couple of hours.
All right, Alex.
I'd call in sick.
First question for you. T-Bone, your microphone, you can turn that on, big boy.
No, you don't worry about it.
I didn't want it on.
I'm going to eliminate Caleb Williams as an answer for any of these questions.
What?
Because he's the number 1 pick. It's a good situation. It's a good pick. Like, all of that, we all agree with
Bryce
everything.
Young was the number 1 pick, and we didn't eliminate him.
Because we didn't think it was a good pick.
Well, some of us did.
Williams is a little bit of a different situation. Alex, when you look back on day 1 of the first round, what was the fit that you liked the most? The pick that when it was announced and you thought about how they fit into their new situation, you were like, really like that one. That one makes sense to me.
I mean, I know it's boring, but the offensive tackle, Joe Alt with the Chargers, to me was one that it felt like, okay, that was really needed. Like, you're not moving on from Herbert. You've got at least some of your weapons that you believe you have. You've got your new head coach. You need the protection. I'll tell you the one, though, that I really liked, Malik Neighbors with the Giants.
Sure.
I don't like their quarterback, but if you're them, let's make sure before we move on from the $41 million that we put towards him by getting him a legit stud. So I appreciate the fact that they didn't go after a quarterback or sign some offensive linemen in the draft. They got the weapon. Now we really see Daniel Jones on the clock. So that was the one that I felt like was the best fit.
Yeah, I did really like that one. The other one for me that I really loved is the defensive tackle out of Texas, Byron Murphy II to Seattle.
Yeah.
I loved him being put there. That is the perfect fit for the Seattle Seahawks, who are going to just go back to this defensive mind. I think they have a chance to be a good defense this year. Granted, I said that last year, and they were not very good. But they need someone that can stop the run and get to the passer, and I think they got that with that draft pick. I love that fit for them.
So the same reason that I eliminated Caleb Williams, I'm going to do the same for Roma Dunze because I love the fit. It's such a great fit. The Bears were the biggest winner from day 1, but they also had 2 top 9 picks. So, yeah, of course they're going to be a winner from day 1.
Just because you have a top 10 pick doesn't mean you're a winner.
Look at
Atlanta.
Michigan.
My other team that I would go with, and it's for a lot of the same reasons that Alex said with Joe Alt to the Chargers, it's the Jets just doing the smart thing, taking their medicine and taking a tackle. Olu Fashanu, I have no idea if he's going to be good. Like, guys, we have no idea with these tackles. Sometimes you see him and you're like, set it and forget it. The next 10 years, you got a tackle in place. I have no idea. But it was the right move to take a tackle. They have Morgan Moses and Tyron Smith right now as their 2 offensive tackles. Oof. Those guys are not staying healthy for 17 games. There's no chance of it. And how many times did we see in mock drafts them taking a wide receiver or Brock Bowers, something that's not going to help protect your 40-year-old investment of a conspiracy theory quarterback? Like, you got to protect that guy, man. He's spinning on his axis. We got to make sure that guy stays healthy all year long. Aaron Rodgers is the thing that makes that, for better or worse, go in New York. They got a tackle that can keep him upright. Loved the pick. It was the smart thing, even if it's not sexy. All right, Alex, on the other side of it, what was the pick that you saw outside? Again, I'm going to take one off the board. Outside of Michael Penix Jr., who we've discussed a lot, that you saw it and you're like, that's the way you're going to go here? I just don't understand it. What was the fit you didn't like?
Mine was Brock Bowers with the Raiders. And I know you liked it, but I didn't. I look at that Raiders team and I'm thinking, man, I don't care about a tight end. I don't care about any of this. You've got other problems, meaning the quarterback. Rather than that, either trade back and gain more assets, either later in the draft or in future years, or be aggressive, make a Godfather offer like T-Bone mentioned, and trade up and get Michael Penix Jr. because Getting Brock Bowers does nothing for me if I'm relying on Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell to make this team good.
That was mine, but to go different, it was one that Alex said that he liked. I liked the offensive tackle one you referenced. I did not like Neighbors to the Giants.
Same.
Really?
I love him as a player. He's not going to be utilized the way that a pass-catching wide receiver should be when I've got a quarterback that looks like he's in a horror film all the time when there's defensive edge coming out and his eyes are bugging out of his eyes.
Because of his weapons.
I think it's because he sucks. Like, Daniel Jones is not an NFL caliber quarterback. The Giants didn't want to run him back, but they just couldn't trade up to get Drake May. So I hate the fit. I understand that you probably should take the best player available when you're at your spot, and they clearly didn't like the other quarterbacks in the class because they could have taken Penix or Bo Nix if they wanted to, or hell, J.J. McCarthy, which I thought they might. Instead, they add this weapon that Daniel Jones isn't going to be able to get the football to. I just don't like the fit. I love the player, and I love him as a wide receiver. I hate the fit, though, in New York.
I'm going to a player that you mentioned there, which is Bo Nix. I just don't get it,
That's a good
man.
one.
I don't get it. Bo Nix is fine. And I think the ceiling for him is always going to be he's fine. Do I want that guy at number 12 overall in an NFL draft? My answer is a resounding no. And so I know that people are probably going to say, but BK, what's their alternative? What do you do at quarterback this year if not Bo Nix? The answer is you tank. And it's not a sexy answer. It's not a fun answer. You don't like that if you're Sean Payton. And I understand how you can talk yourself into Bo Nix being a caretaker here and him maybe being for you what Drew Brees was for you in New Orleans. Super smart, can get the ball to where it needs to go, very accurate. I get all of that. Your team stinks. It's terrible. Understand that. Go get just a really good football player, a tackle, a defensive player, something. Build up the roster around the quarterback situation and get your quarterback next year. Admit that your board wasn't what you thought it was going to be when it fell to you. You had to take the 6th quarterback at number 12 overall. We've never seen that happen in the history of the NFL draft. The earliest the 6th quarterback has ever gone was the draft in which we saw Dan Marino go in the first round. It's been 40 years, dude. So, yeah, I hated the pick of Bo Nix at number 12 overall to the Denver Broncos. I thought it was laughable. I thought it was such a reach and so unnecessary for them to take him there.
It felt a lot like, you always have a plan going into a fantasy football draft. And, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. And then all of a sudden everybody else starts doing it. And all of a sudden you look up and you go, oh, crap, I have to take. Yep. I didn't want to take a running back this early, but I have to. Otherwise, I'm screwed. That's what happened to the Broncos.
And he's the last starter. He's the last starting quarterback available in the draft.
Otherwise, it's like, do you look at like Spencer Rattler in the 3rd round? Like, I think Bo Nix was a 2nd-round quarterback. But then you started to see him all flying off the board, and you realized that the Raiders weren't going to be able to take a quarterback. So you said, well, Nix isn't going to get to the 2nd, so we have to reach.
All right, you mentioned it, fantasy football. Who's the guy that went yesterday that you said to yourself, I got to get my hands on him? I got to take him in my fantasy football draft for this upcoming season.
Are you taking...
Nobody. You get to whoever.
Okay. Mine's Caleb Williams. I'm drafting Caleb Williams, and I do a keeper league. I'm going to be drafting him late. Hopefully he stays late and doesn't go early, but with all of those weapons, as the number 1 that's going to be run out there every game next season, yeah, I'm taking Caleb Williams to see him heave the ball downfield.
T-Bone?
I think I would go Marvin Harrison Jr.
Hell yeah, dude. He's going to be so good. He's going to be so good.
I know, I'm not
I don't like Kyler, though.
That's the thing is, I'm not the biggest fan on Kyler, but he showed me signs last year.
He can get the ball to his number 1 receiver, and that's Marvin Harrison Jr.
And he is going to have all kinds of,
all of the targets.
That's
all of the targets.
And that's why I'm like, yes, please, I want that guy on my fantasy team. Don't draft Kyler. No, don't do that. Go get Marvin Harrison Jr. because he is going to be getting the bulk of those targets.
So another guy that I'll go to, Brock Bowers, man.
Who the hell's throwing on the ball?
I hear you, but they're going to find ways to get him the football. They have to make this work.
That's what the Falcons said about Pitts, and I didn't see that.
Year 1, it worked, though.
Yeah, but I drafted Pitts thinking it was going to keep working, and boy, did it not.
The first year with Pitts, you got good production out of him if you drafted him in fantasy football. Tight end is a wasteland in fantasy, guys. There's like 3 guys that matter at the tight end position, and one of them is TJ Hawkinson, and he's hurt to start out the season. So
perfect late draft candidate.
For sure. Brock Bowers, to me, is a guy that I will be taking a decent amount of this year. One guy I will warn fans about.
Is it who I'm thinking?
I don't think Xavier Worthy is going to be as productive in year one as you guys are expecting.
I've
Think
learned
about
not to
how
draft
long
those
it took
guys.
Rashee Rice to be able to get things going offensive. I think he'll have a role, but it will be more similar to like what McCole Hardman's role was in year one. I think next year is the year that you want Xavier Worthy on your team. This year, while everybody else gets excited about the new shiny toy, go draft Hollywood Brown. That's the Chiefs receiver that you want this year.
You probably should go after Worthy when Rashee Rice isn't playing and then when Kadarius Toney can't line up.
Can I give you a different one, though, that I think will actually be an interesting player to monitor?
Was he in the 20s when he was picked?
The final pick of the first round?
Oh, that's not who I was thinking.
Xavier Legette. Oh. The Panthers have nobody else to throw to, guys.
No. Bryce Young can't
Well,
see.
they got Adam Thielen, man.
Yeah, their number one receiver is 40. Xavier Legette is amazing after the catch. And he is a big, strong, fast individual. I would take that guy in a fantasy football draft. Late, but I would take him. Keep an eye on him.
The guy I was thinking of was Brian Thomas Jr. to Jacksonville.
Oh, okay.
I do kind of like that fit, and he's not going to get a big bulk like Marvin Harrison. I think he's going to fit in that offense pretty well with Trevor Lawrence. I'm expecting a bounce-back year from Trevor Lawrence. He's someone that I'm going to be keeping an eye on in my fantasy drafts.
I bet Malik Neighbors will be a sneaky one just because that's the only dude he's going to be throwing the ball to.
That's a good point as well. He actually could end up being a really good
if you're going off of just receptions alone, that dude's going to get all of them.
Yeah, that's fair. And Darren Waller's probably going to retire.
Yeah. They have nobody to throw to. They don't even have a running back to throw it to anymore.
Tough.
Who's the guy that is available today that you're most interested to see where they go?
I kind of feel like where I know he's going to go, but it's Mitchell from Texas. I really think Buffalo's going to be taking him with the. Yeah, I think that's why they traded back. They're like, well, might as well gain more picks if we can acquire this dude if Carolina's not going to get him. So I think I know where he's going to go. Cooper DeJean is the other one.
Oh, that's my boy. I thought the Chiefs might take him.
I really thought he was going to be a first-round pick. Everyone was mocking it somewhere between 23 and 27, and it didn't happen. So, I'll be curious to see who decides to jump into that one.
I think the receivers, by the way, are going to fly off the board.
Starting with 33.
One, New England. Arizona could take another. Wouldn't surprise anybody. Washington could use one. The Chargers could use one. The Panthers could use another.
Cooper DeJean might be.
Falcons, maybe. Raiders, maybe. Yeah. Saints, maybe. There's going to be a lot of teams.
Falcons, we don't need another one, man.
They need to add a wide receiver so that way whenever Michael Penix Jr. is starting, he can throw to him.
Maybe they should run a 2-quarterback package.
Maybe.
The two I'm fascinated by, and it's the two kids that we saw locally here, is Newton that went to Illinois and then Rakestraw that went to Missouri. Rakestraw, somebody's going to pick him up in the second round. I don't know where Newton's going, guys. Remember, he was a projected first-round pick, but he doesn't get to the quarterback, and he's good against the run, but there's clearly no value in the first round for him. I don't know where he ends up going because I think the wide receivers go flying off the board. He makes a ton of sense for the Chargers. Yeah, you're right. He's a Charger.
He's going to be a Charger. Congratulations,
he's definitely going to be a Charger.
You are a Charger.
You don't even need to wait.
Keon Coleman's a guy. If you want to put a fine point on it, wide receiver position for me, Keon Coleman is somebody that I'm fascinated to see where he goes. I think he would be a great fit with the Bills. He's the big-bodied wide receiver that used to play. He used to play basketball at Michigan State, ended up going to Florida State. Keon Coleman is somebody worth monitoring. I think you're going to see a decent amount of Mizzou players over the course of the next 2 days, by the way. And it's Rakestraw at some point today, so should be a fun time for Mizzou fans as well. All right, coming up next, we're going to get into the junk drawer with a couple of the off-the-field, non-player takes that took place yesterday with the NFL Draft. We'll let you hear it next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. All right, so when you watch the NFL draft, there's some nonsense that takes place, right? You see last night, I don't know if you guys saw it, but the Olu Fashanu, when he was selected, his mom wanted no part with his girlfriend. Did you see that?
No, I missed that.
His mom was like blocking his girlfriend from going through to get a hug.
That's because she probably knew that girl wasn't going to be there very long.
You see your guy, Sean McVay, pissed as they were getting ready to select a defensive end.
Dude, there were so many wideouts on the board. He was drooling.
He wanted Bo.
And then Les Snead was like, we're going edge. And he went,
I thought they wanted
a whole lot of stuff.
Still the best one ever is CeeDee Lamb a couple of years ago when his girlfriend had his phone and he just ripped it out of her hand. You knew that relationship was done the moment that he was picked.
The COVID year with Mike Vrabel's kids being in the background, dressed up.
Bill Belichick's dog.
Bill Belichick's dog. That was the best.
COVID year was the best year for this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Honestly, we should go back to that.
chilling
Not
in his
COVID,
chair.
but just the draft from home.
Falling asleep by the end of it in his chair. It's great.
Just Santa Claus reading stories.
I was still waiting for the rap battle last night.
Yesterday, I don't know if you guys saw it, but
Eminem would have destroyed him.
we also got some news because Nick Saban told on himself for tampering.
What?
Did you guys see this? Nick Saban, when we got to like the end of the first round-ish, cornerback goes off the board. Guy by the name of Quinyon Mitchell. He's a Toledo cornerback. And as he's selected, Nick Saban says, this was the top guy on our portal list last year. We tried so hard to get him to enter the portal so that way he would come to Alabama, but we just couldn't get him to enter. I was like, Saban, you can't do that, man.
Respect the game, man.
Saban was great. Belichick was great. I enjoyed all of it.
This is
Tired
why
old man just willing to let it fly
This
now.
is why he got out of the games, and we could start letting the beans spill.
So when all of the offensive players were flying off the board, he said, you guys, I've heard a lot of people ask, why did I decide to retire? This is why. I'm a defensive coach, and all of these offensive players are the ones that are getting selected early. But that wasn't it. We also got a couple of great moments on the broadcast from some of the reporters that were there.
All right, let's rank this: bronze, silver, gold.
Which one are we going with first, the mom or the correction?
The correction.
All right.
We had this conversation.
I know.
Is it on the rundown?
No, it's not, because Google Docs is down right now.
Good.
So the first thing, they're going to a fan, Alex, a Vikings fan.
Uh-oh.
And this is what takes place.
Tony, you've been out here cheering. I need another Vikings cheer, okay? Tanya. Oh, sorry. Tanya. I am so sorry. I'm glad we got that corrected. Tanya, give me another Vikings cheer. Go Vikings!
Oh, that's
Whoops.
rough. That's rough.
Want to get away?
It got worse.
It got worse than calling a Tanya Tony?
Yep. So here, after Brian Thomas Jr. was selected,
Love the pick.
Love the pick.
his mother had this moment with Laura Rutledge.
Sandra, how far has this family come?
We came from Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Honestly, though, I blame Laura Rutledge. Bad question.
No,
Bad
You
question.
know how this works, right? They're trying to talk about, hey, think about everything that you guys have been through.
Frame it that way. Frame it that way.
Look at where you are
Everybody
right now.
knows
Your
what that
son,
means.
first round selection.
Nah, man.
And Laura's thinking about all of this, and she did all of the background research, and then she asks her question.
Sandra, how far has this family come?
We came from Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
that's it. That's all the answer had.
I mean, to be fair, that is a long drive.
She answered the question that was asked.
That is a long
You know what?
trip.
Next time someone asks, if they ever ask me, I'm going to go, I'm from Albany, Illinois.
What was the camera on Brian Thomas Sr.? Because God, I would have loved to seen his face when his wife said that.
That's what he was fine. He was like, yeah, she's right. We did. We came from Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Again, poor question by Laura Rutledge.
By the way, the fact that we cut it right there. No pause from Laura Rutledge. Just moved on to the next question. Fantastic job reporting, because I would have been like, that's not what I was asking.
Total pro.
Not me.
Pro in
I
the
would have
moment.
totally lost it.
The NFL draft is
Rouge,
the best
Louisiana.
for this kind of stuff. It's absolutely fantastic. And
What's
last night
better,
was no
that
exception.
one, or do you remember a couple of years ago at the NHL draft when the kid's parent, or he got selected, and the
they
kid's
made
parents
out?
were making out on camera?
The draft's the best, man.
It really is, man. You see some wild-ish go down.
All right, coming up in about 30 minutes, we're going to be joined by Chris Kerber. He's the voice of the Blues. Talk some hockey with him. But coming up next,
Came all the way from St. Louis, Missouri.
what was the biggest non-quarterback surprise of the first round? Because the big one, of course, Michael Penix Jr. going to the Atlanta Falcons. Everybody was shocked by that. And then Bo Nix going to the Broncos was a huge surprise. The only reason it's not the headline today is because the Falcons paid $100 million for a quarterback and then drafted his replacement for 3 years from now in the top 10. But that one was also a big surprise. What about non-quarterbacks? We'll get into that coming up next year on BK and Ferrario.
We came from Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
All right, so what was the biggest surprise last night in the NFL draft? Obviously, the number one answer to that question, Michael Penix Jr. going to the team that just spent $100 million on their starting quarterback and can't get out of that deal for the next 3 seasons. Yeah, that was the shock of the night. But if we get away from, and honestly, a pretty big surprise as well, was Bo Nix going at number 12 overall to the Denver Broncos.
Very surprising.
But if we get away from the quarterback position, Alex, what was your biggest surprise last night in terms of a selection that you didn't see coming?
I mean, I guess the selection would be the Chiefs selecting Worthy, but it was because Buffalo traded back. I especially for the position that Buffalo is in, like, you need help and help fast. Maybe they believe Mitchell's a better wide receiver than any of these other guys that were available to him, and you gained more assets, and maybe they can trade for another weapon. But that was the one, because really once you got past the Bo Nix, it kind of felt like it started to fall into place a little bit of defensive players going and certain teams. But that trade was the one that I was like, wait, what? Bills are trading backwards when they need help at wide receiver? So that was the one that I was surprised with.
Yeah, that was surprising, and that one was like the biggest shock after the Bo Nix one. I don't know about you guys. I was surprised that we didn't see more wide receivers go in the first round. I thought we were going to see the Texas kid, Mitchell, go in the first round. I thought we were going to see, I don't remember what the number was we set yesterday, 6 or 7.
We went over, didn't we?
But there was just a couple of names that I thought like we were still going to see them flying off the board, especially like you get to the Bills who needed a wide receiver. Instead, they trade back. Now, look, the Chiefs took one.
I think it was just different names, like Ricky Pearsall and Xavier Legette.
I didn't see those guys going in the first.
They flipped positions with A.D. Mitchell and some of the other guys that had previously been mocked at the back end of the first round. So it was same number as we were probably expecting, just a couple of different names that were thrown in there.
And I guess that's why it is surprising to me, because I'm stunned that Mitchell's on the board still. I thought for sure he was going in the first round.
Some character concerns. He says he runs routes at 70%, so that way he can go the whole game.
Hey, good for him, man. I want him for the full game. Character
I'm
concerns.
not kidding.
Character concerns.
He said that at the NFL Combine.
Well,
not a good start, man. Not a good start. Character concerns.
All right, never mind. I'm not shocked he went in the first round. Move on from me.
He was asked by the media about his route running. He said, well, one of the things that I do is I run at every route at 70%, so that way I can be in there the whole game. It's like, wait, dude, what if you like ran every route at 100% and then played 70% of the game? Wouldn't that make more sense? No, not to A.D. Mitchell.
Now I get why it's character concerns.
My biggest surprise was the 49ers taking Ricky Pearsall. Because for all of the talk about them trading Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, and I understand they're probably going to do it. One of them is probably going to be traded today. I don't think they should. I think you should run it back with those guys at wide receiver. In fact, I would just keep Ricky Pearsall and those guys at receiver for one more season. And then next year, if you want to get out of the deal, so be it. Because the first year of the big contract for Brandon Ayuk is going to be relatively cheap because of the way that the contracts work in the NFL. I don't want to live in a world, if I'm the 49ers, where I'm not maximizing these cheap years of having Brock Purdy on that rookie contract. And the way to maximize that contract is to have as many weapons as humanly possible around him. And there's nothing you can spend the money on now. If you were to trade Deebo Samuel, Alex, what are you spending that money on that you're saving from Deebo? Some of that, sure, is going towards the contract extension for Brandon Ayuk, but not a lot. It's going to be like a $5 million cap hit this year.
Are you opening up for Brock Purdy when you got to pay him?
Sure, but again, that's not until next year.
Yep.
So in future years, totally get it why you need to do this with Deebo Samuel eventually. But I would just wait until next year to do that.
I guess the Samuel thing is for how his career has gone these last couple of years and how he's up and down with injuries and in and out of the availability. Maybe if you're San Francisco, you're like, do we really want to spin the dice on this and him be hurt all season and then not be able to trade him to where like, and
that's a fair point.
And I understand why they were searching for it yesterday, because it's like, man, if we get a first round pick, that's a hell of a deal for somebody that probably isn't going to be here beyond the season, may not be even healthy. So let's trade him now. Now you're at the point where if you're only getting second, third, late draft picks, now I'm in your stance where it's like, screw it. I'm just going to keep these guys because I got a shot to win a Super Bowl. So I'll keep that, deal with it next year. But for right now, if I'm not getting something that helps me now, I'm going to just keep those guys.
Deebo Samuel is going to account for $21 million of dead money against the cap this year. $21 million dead cap for the San Francisco 49ers. Is it more valuable for me to have Deebo Samuel on my roster this season and not have that $21 million dead cap charge? Or is it more valuable to trade him, get a second or a third round pick in return, and have that guy on my team this season? I just lean towards Deebo Samuel. I think he's just a better football player than what you're going to be able to get in the second round. But maybe they disagree with me. I mean, clearly they would disagree with that because they seem to be very interested in making that
maybe
kind of
maybe they want the if you're Kyle Shanahan, you don't want the distractions.
Possibly,
you still feel like you got one of the best defenses in the entire NFL going into next season. You've got a quarterback you believe in. You've got a stud running back. You figure you can fill the holes of wide receiver. Let's get rid of the distractions.
So here's a question that I was thinking about as well as we get through the first round of the NFL draft last night. Has the NFL become more watchable because of this year's draft? The reason why I ask is because you look at some of the teams that lacked a quarterback. The Bears go from most of last year not being a super fun team to watch until like the last month to a team that now becomes must-watch television with Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, adding Keenan Allen, still having DJ Moore. That team's going to be fun as hell to watch this year. I don't know what the Washington Commanders are going to look like with Jaden Daniels at the helm, but I know they're going to be a lot more fun than what it was to watch them last year with Sam Howell at quarterback. For all the talk about what happened with Michael Penix Jr. and the Falcons are going to be a much more entertaining team to watch this year with Kirk Cousins at the helm.
Days of Our Lives Atlanta edition. I got it. I nailed it.
The Broncos are going to be more watchable with Bo Nix than they were with what they were last year. I'm confident in this one.
Oh, I want to see it blow up.
Russell Wilson was brutal.
See, I'm not going to be watching much Broncos.
Do you guys think that the league in general has become more watchable going into this year than it was for many of the teams this time last year?
I feel like just after the first round, there were 6 teams that I look at and be like, well, now I'm more curious of what they look like than what I was last year. Washington, I could care less about that team. Now you got Jaden Daniels I'm going to be watching. Marvin Harrison Jr., I'm going to be curious of what the Arizona Cardinals look like. Malik Neighbors with the Giants. You mentioned Penix Jr. And then I will be more interested in Denver. But I've made it very clear I like chaos, so I want to see that blow up in Sean Payton's face.
Yeah, I
think the Chiefs are more interesting this year, too.
Well, of course you do.
They're going to be more fun to watch. Last year was miserable to watch the Chiefs during the regular season.
I think the Vikings are going to be fun to watch because I'm going to be rooting so hard for McCarthy.
That's who I was going to bring up. Is that they're going to be fascinating because I want to know when they're going to bring him in. That's the other part about this is a lot of these guys, not Daniels, not Williams, and not Bo Nix. He's going to win the job. But like Penix, all of a sudden, like if Kirk Cousins struggles or he looks kind of lost, there's going to be calls in Atlanta for Penix to get the chance. Drake may not be the starter in New England right off the bat. They may go with Jacoby Brissett. And then you've also got McCarthy in Minnesota. Like they're probably going to start with Sam Darnold. And you're going to see those three teams have the potential to have all kinds of conversations around their quarterback position because they've set it up to where they've got the guy in waiting, which never works. Never works. It always leads to these quarterback controversies that half the time never pan out.
I love that we have so many controversies right now at quarterback. Dak Prescott entering the final year of his contract. What's going on with Atlanta? The Vikings having to make that decision early on. The Bears now have their best quarterback probably in the history of the franchise. He's going to be the first guy to ever throw for 4,000 yards. Nobody has ever done that in a Bears uniform, and Caleb Williams will almost certainly do that in year one. Makes it a hell of a lot of fun to watch, man. So going into this year, I think it's a more watchable product than it has been over the past couple of seasons.
Have you seen what the NFL just approved, by the way, for in-game use?
The
Guardian caps.
Yeah, nobody's going to use it.
It looks a little funny if they're...
That's a baseball team, man.
Nobody's going to do it.
No, I can picture McCaffrey running around in one of these.
It looks like a beehive.
They use them in training camp.
Yeah.
They're fine.
This is like when you put the cheat code on Madden and they get the bobbleheads. That's what this looks like.
So I'm not trying to be like some science denier, I promise, but
it's a good start.
Yeah, I know. There's very little evidence to show whether or not these things are actually effective. Very little evidence. And so the NFL uses it in training camp and now potentially in games because it looks like it would be something that would help. Like it's the appearance of player safety more so than it is actually having player safety at top of mind. Does that make sense, what I'm saying there? They just want fans to see, look at what we're trying to do for our players, as opposed to the truth is football's bad for your head. It's just bad. It's something that if you play this game over an extended period of time and you are as big and as fast and as strong as these guys are at the NFL level, the amount of impacts that your head and neck are going to take on an every week basis and including practices, everyday basis, it eventually is going to take a toll on you. Doesn't mean that everybody's going to get CTE or anything like that, but it will eventually be bad for you. The reason why it used to be a bigger problem maybe than it is now, players didn't know that. They weren't aware of what they were putting their body through on a day in, day out basis. They didn't know the science behind it with the CTE and what the potential impact could be down the road. We now do. Players know when they sign up to be a part of this league what they are getting into. Now, morally, if you are opposed to football and all that, that's totally cool. But the players that are getting into it now at least know what's happening. I hate when the league does stuff like this. It's so frustrating, man, because it's the appearance as opposed to like actually trying to do something that changes whether or not guys are getting hurt. They're
going to start looking like the Michelin Man before too long.
Coming up next, let's play a game of One's Gotta Go. You give us 4 options, we'll tell you which one's got to go here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, let's play a game of One's Gotta Go. We'll get to Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, coming up here in just a little bit, but you give us 4 options. We'll tell you which one's gotta go here on BK and Ferrario. Alex, let's start out with this one. One's Gotta Go Cardinals edition. Ollie Marmol, Dusty Blake, Turner Ward, or John Mozeliak. Which one's gotta go?
I'll do John Mozeliak. Give me a aggressive president of baseball operations that I think is more up to date with the times in Major League Baseball, and I think the other 3 have more success.
I think I would go with that as well. I think I would go John Mozeliak. I think this team gets plenty of money to spend. I just hate the way that they allocate the resources. So I would say Mo. Sorry, Mo.
I would go Turner Ward.
What? Because he said hit gooder?
No, I think he's got the least impact on the roster.
Tell that to Jeff Albert.
Is it because you're not seeing us hit right now?
I think
we're not getting gooder. Is that what your concern is?
I think that the offense is something that could use a little bit of a shakeup right now. And I'm not calling for the hitting coach to be fired because I think it's on the players. But if I have to remove one of these individuals from their current positions, I would go with Turner Ward. One's got to go Blues edition, Alex.
Always protecting Mo and Ollie. What else is new?
Specifically Ollie.
He'd be my number 2 on that list.
You're the worst. Bennington, Parayko, Kyrou, or Neighbors. Excuse me. Bennington, Parayko, Army, or Neighbors. I'll switch that one up.
You knew the one that was going to go in that one. Yeah. Man. I guess it would have to be Army. I wouldn't get rid of any of the other 3. I think you got all your top guys there, and with those guys, I'd get rid of the president of hockey operations and try and find another one.
That's tough. Parayko, Benner, I would not get rid of. Who's the other one? Neighbors?
Army or Neighbors.
Neighbors or Army. Boy. Yeah, I haven't seen Army skate. I don't know if he can score 5-on-5, so I guess he's the one that's got to go.
Nice spin rate on that one. I liked it.
Thank you.
At least I don't sit there and try and protect the head of the operations like some people.
This guy's picking Parayko.
Some guys.
This guy's picking Binnington. Look, somebody straight up for Leon Draisaitl. We're going to kill time until Rick Herbs is ready so you can just send it to break and not answer?
I think I would get rid of Neighbors, actually.
Wow.
It's the lowest ceiling.
That's a hot take.
To win a cup, you need a number 1 center, you need a number 1 D-man, you need a number 1 goalie. 2 of the 3 of those pieces are in this category. It's Parayko and Benner. I can win without having Jake Neighbors on this team. Now I have to find somebody to replace him, but I think it's easier to find a net front presence than it is to find a number 1 defenseman or a legit goalie that I can trust in the postseason. So I would go Jake Neighbors would be the one that's got to go, even though I don't like it.
First it was Barbashev, then it's Jake Neighbors. Damn. And yet he's going to keep Jordan Kyrou.
All right, one's got to go.
This is a tough day for you, man.
Things you wish would go away.
It's BK on this.
The Chiefs dynasty, supposed dynasty is how they framed it. The Fast and the Furious movies, that's a personal attack at Alex.
What family?
Missouri not having sports betting. Oh. Or not giving tickets to slow drivers.
Do you give tickets to slow drivers?
You know, they want you to.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
That's got Alex.
Yeah, that's mine. Yeah. You know what pisses me off? When you're driving the speed limit and somebody comes up behind you and rides your tail. There's a fast lane for a reason, sir.
I think we should have a new segment called What's Making Alex Angry.
What pisses me off
that's
today?
Dark. That is we could not have that on. FCC would be on our tail.
Yeah, 140.
Just like what he was talking about.
That might need to be the post-show YouTube special we host.
I would say, oh, man. I don't care if the Fast and Furious movies are here.
Yeah, you do.
No,
Otherwise, you have no family.
I could care. You know, you're right. Get rid of the Fast and Furious movies.
You're crazy,
Those things stink. Even though, like, if we didn't have
Missouri
a Chiefs
not having
dynasty,
legalized sports betting, it's absurd. I cannot believe that this is where we're still at.
Well, that's why I go to the Circus Sports app in Illinois.
In the state of Missouri,
you
please.
can in Illinois.
In the state of Missouri, I am done crossing
I think you got a
that
gambling
bridge.
problem.
I'm done. I go over to the Hardee's and I sit in their parking lot, and people look at me, and I am ready to just be able to bet in this state.
It is kind of awkward when when you're just sitting in a parking lot.
Yeah.
And if you
you're
keep
not
going to
even
the
there for
same
anything.
Hardee's at the same time, that's creepy, man.
I need to just be able to do
I've
that
done
from
it.
the comfort of my own home.
I'm going to Greenville today to do play-by-play after the show. I pull into the same CVS parking lot, and I never feel good about it when I'm done.
It's right across the river. It's the first exit, the first thing that I come to.
Honestly,
No, I changed my answer. He's right.
Sports betting and not being in Missouri is keeping my kids potentially going to college, so it's probably good that it stays where it is.
Final one here. One's got to go. Things that are too expensive edition: concert tickets, beef, smartphones, or ballpark beer.
Beef.
Such a random one thrown in there.
I'm a vegetarian.
What was the third one? Well, no, you're not. You're veg curious. What was the third one?
We went to Texas Roadhouse last night.
Of course you did.
And
you were like,
we
oh,
got
damn, this
carryout.
steak looks good.
No, they have a vegetable plate at Texas Roadhouse now. It's really
How
good,
much
man.
money did you go to Texas Roadhouse to pay for a vegetable plate?
It was $11. I was shocked.
You paid $11 for a vegetable
I
plate.
got a salad, I got a baked potato, I got some rice, and I got some broccoli. It was great. Such a
All
good
of
meal.
what you just said, I could go to the grocery store and buy for like $8.
Yeah, but then you have to prepare it.
I repeat, don't sit by me in the press box.
Yeah, man. Dude, I can't with you and these veggie plates.
When I went to the game the other day, they have at Mission Taco, they've got the vegetarian
Yeah, don't be by
tacos.
me. Don't sit by me.
Man, I don't like hipsters, and you are like borderline hipster right now.
I'd say
The
tickets.
beef has got to go, by the way.
I'd say tickets. Concert tickets are expensive, and I'm not the biggest fan of going to a concert, but there are some people that I still would like to see. Dude, it's insane.
Kara's friend the other day had tickets to see Taylor Swift in Indianapolis, and they asked, "Hey, do you want to go?"
Imagine.
I was like, "Sure, yeah, I'm interested." Like, what's she selling them for? She said they're
$500.
$500.
Oh my god!
And they were like nosebleeds.
They were
they were sitting in the parking
200
lot.
level, so second level.
That's not too bad.
I told Kara, I was like, I'm interested in going, but no, I would have paid like $100 maybe. She's like, okay, let me see what I can do. She's like, she'll drop them to $300 a piece. I said, no, I'm not interested. $300 a piece to see Taylor Swift.
No.
Not something that I'm willing to do.
Yeah, concert tickets bring the price down.
I don't really go unless I'm.
Really, they're not that expensive. It's just the fees from every place.
It's gonna sound super cheap, but like I don't really go to concerts unless like somebody's offering them to me for free.
I don't think you understand Texas Roadhouse, man.
It's true.
I am baffled by the fact that you didn't want to go prep the food yourself, and so you dropped $15 for a veggie tray. 11 with tax.
Yeah, it's great.
$15 for a salad, a baked potato, rice, and broccoli.
Yeah, man.
All of those take like 5 minutes to prepare.
Part of this business is a steakhouse.
What do you think Texas Roadhouse thought when they said
that butter, that cinnamon butter they've got? I mean, that was the worst.
Get butter and put cinnamon in it.
You get the rolls, too.
This thing was ordered.
Great. Good
BK
meal.
walked in. They went, dude, we put this on the website as a joke, right?
Dude, if you order food, we'll put this on the side for free, right?
No, you got to pay for their sides.
No, the salad comes with the food.
Yeah, but then you also have to order.
The baked potato comes with the food.
Yeah, but not together.
Dude,
you have to
just
pay extra
get a
to
steak,
multiple.
man.
I am baffled by the fact that you
We also have multiple people that go to the same Hardee's as I do. I'm telling you, it's the best spot. If you go across the river off 270,
y'all are creepy.
You turn right and you take another
man, no
right.
parking
It's the
spot
Hardee's
today.
right there. It's a big parking lot.
Hey,
You
BK's
face it.
here.
It's great. It's great. All right, coming up next.
Do you eat your
Chris Kerber.
veggie tray while you're in the parking lot?
Nah, man, I don't do that beforehand. Get on the way home. Chris Kerber next.
Okay, over the last couple of days, what did you do? Did you just shut the air conditioner off? Did you turn the air conditioner on? Did you turn your furnace on because it was cold? And my wife turned the heater on. She turned the heater on. I go, what are you doing? She said, I'm cold in here. I'm like, oh, man, now it's hot. Well, this is the time of year where you're going from the heater to the air conditioner and back and forth. Well, it's also the time of year to make sure that everything is running in order. Go to classicaircare.com, and air is A-I-R-E. Go to classicaircare.com, set up an appointment, have the great service technicians at Classic Air Care come over and maintain that HVAC unit at your house. You want to know how you avoid costly repairs and maybe a unit replacement? You keep it maintained like you would your car or any. It's like cleaning out the lit vent in your dryer. It's just maintenance that you have to do. So follow up with classicaircare.com. They've got a 4.8 rating on Google. The men and women coming into your house to service a unit are your neighbors because they live here locally. They'll take care of you like you are neighbors. Check out the great Google rating, check out the reviews, and book your appointment online today at classicaircare.com.
Day Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals back in action tonight as they start a 3-game set at the New York Mets. 6:10 will be first pitch as Miles Michaelis gets the start for St. Louis. Other news across Major League Baseball, Jackson Holliday has been optioned to AAA by the Baltimore Orioles. And tonight here on 101 ESPN, we've got round 2 and round 3 of the NFL draft for you. We'll have coverage starting at 5 o'clock. And the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber, joins the show next here on BK and Ferrario. The Sports Update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent Mercedes heating and air conditioning dealer.
We just got this text from the 314, literally sitting at the Hardee's in Illinois
God.
right now, placing my bets. 101 ESPN, you just blew up my spot. Now it's going to get busy.
Son of a...
Take the Mets tonight.
I'm telling you, man,
Amen.
It is the best spot to place your bets. And when you go over to the Illinois side, be sure to download the Circa Sports app.
Absolutely.
It's the best app in Illinois to place all of your bets. You're going to win the most money over there. They've got the best lines available to you.
Make those
They recommend
parlays.
shopping on other spots, but they think you'll come back to Circa Sports because they've got the best lines. I'm telling you, the best place, the one place that I go to place all of my bets, Alex, if you're anywhere like north of 64, north of 40, the best place to go is right off of 270, get across the state line, and boom, you're right in that Hardee's parking
You got
lot.
a problem, man.
It's the spot to place your bets.
You got
All
a
right,
problem.
right now we're going out to the
Sponsorship
101
that Hardee's.
ESPN hotline to be joined by Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues. He joins us here on BK and Ferrario. And Curbs, I would normally ask you how you doing and that we appreciate your time and my first question, but apparently Alex would like
Curbs,
to kick us off today.
I'm going to start this one off real quick because BK and I were just doing our One's Gotta Go segment. And have you ever heard of somebody who goes to Texas Roadhouse but doesn't order any food other than a veggie tray, which is a salad, a baked potato, rice, and broccoli?
Listen, I can't.
Don't, Curbs.
I can't pick a side on this one on you, Alex. If the man wants to eat hungry and doesn't want to prep his own veggies,
thank you.
Who am I to say he can't go buy him somewhere else?
You're supposed to be on this side of the table, Curbs. We have an alliance. We're brothers.
Listen, I understand that, but there are times too, right? I fully understand. I eat out at too many restaurants because of the amount of time we travel. So I'm all about prepping meals, but totally get it. Sometimes you're like, I don't feel like cooking. Yeah, I realize we're about to eat something I could have cooked at home, but I'm going somewhere to get it.
All right, cool. Curbs, I'm just going to step out of the room and let BK take this.
All right, let's talk some hockey, Chris Kerber, because we love doing that here on BK and Ferrario. Let's start out with this. There has been a little bit of an infighting. I don't know if you've heard this, Curbs, about Sheldon Keefe, the head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs here on 101 ESPN. One show likes him. That would be our show. The Fast Lane, not quite as keen on what he's done in his time with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Or Grant Francis.
There's a decent chance he ends up getting fired if the Toronto Maple Leafs are booted out of the first round of this year once again by the Boston Bruins. Curbs, what do you make of the job based on what you've heard about him and what you yourself have seen from the Toronto Maple Leafs in recent seasons that Sheldon Keefe has done with the Maple Leafs?
Well, I think sometimes we give coaches too much credit, and then other times we don't give them enough credit. They've got some of the top talented players on the team. I don't know that they've had a good enough defense or good enough goaltending as a whole. Having said that, I just don't know that there's been enough consistency in their play throughout the whole thing that I think Sheldon Keefe, if the Toronto Maple Leafs don't get out of the first round, I think he's been given enough leash that I would understand them making a coaching change. So I think sometimes, guys, as coaches too, you just need to get a little dang lucky, on your side. I mean, look, we're not talking about Craig Berube as a Stanley Cup champion head coach if a Jamie Benn wraparound goes 1 inch further and over a goal line in double overtime, right? So, yeah, there's a little more to it than that. But I think, I think he's proven he's a solid NHL coach. I don't know that he's proven that he's the coach that takes you over the top. And that's just how I view that situation from afar.
Curbs, you mentioned Craig Berube, and rumors are starting to come out now of him potentially being connected to the Senators. Who do you think the best match is for Craig Berube of available teams?
And I'm assuming I haven't missed any news about New Jersey making Travis Green officially their coach, have I?
Yeah, no, they haven't done anything yet.
Is that in play?
They haven't done anything.
Yeah, that's in play.
Travis Green?
Yeah, I think if New Jersey doesn't bring Travis Green back, I kind of like New Jersey or, depending on if did Detroit make a coaching move?
No,
I don't think they did yet.
They haven't done anything. They still got that Lalonde.
Yeah, so of the ones that are available that we know of right now, I really like the possibility of him in New Jersey as one of the best landing spots for him.
I think that's the ideal spot.
I would say so. Plus, that's a roster that's in place, and that team just seems to need a Craig Berube leadership more than it needs somebody to come in and change the scheme of the roster, right, Curbs?
Yeah, I think the attitude, the winning, the direct approach. I think at some point in time, young teams like New Jersey, and you can put Ottawa in that same boat. I think Craig Berube in Ottawa could be outstanding with what he would do with Brady Tkachuk and some of the other players that they have. I think you need the coach that I think you need players, one, that are tired of losing, that are saying, okay, we're ready to pay the price. And then you need the kind of coach that players are willing to pay the price for. And that's where Craig Berube, in my opinion, comes in. Players will be willing to pay the price for him.
Hey, Curbs, this time last week when we talked, we hadn't seen any of the playoffs yet. We hadn't seen the first round play at all. Now we're a couple of games into each of these series. Is there anything in particular, as you're sitting down watching some of these games, that has stood out to you about the way that playoff hockey is being played and being won right now?
No, I think it's what you would expect. I think they're tight games, they're hard-fought games. They're leave the ticky-tack crap out of it. good, hard battle games or games that are being won because of goaltending and net front play. I don't think what we're seeing Vegas do is all that surprising. And so far, I don't know that any other series, in my opinion, has surprised me in any way other than has been expected. You just got to love the intensity of playoff hockey, don't you?
Absolutely. And, Kerb, since you brought up the Vegas Golden Knights and you took BK's side earlier in the show, now I'll have you join my side on this one because BK endorses cheating, loves the Mark Stone and what Vegas does, and I'd love you to take your stance on this.
Well, I actually went down a rabbit hole on this. I did it on the Western Conference, haven't finished on the Eastern Conference. Right now in the Western Conference playoff teams, there's only one team that is, in terms of their game one lineup, I only did game one lineup. There's only one team in the West where their game one lineup whose average annual salary for their regular season salary prices would be over what the cap limit was this year. That's Vegas, and that is still without Alec Martinez and some of the others in the lineup. Now, you have to keep in mind that when you talk about having a team to fit under a salary cap, you're fitting 23 players in the regular season, not the 20, including the goaltenders that are in a lineup on a given basis, right? So you're seeing all the other teams between 65, 75 million, that kind of, the cap was 83.5, and Vegas is over 84 million in terms of their playoffs. You cannot call the Vegas Golden Knights cheaters. You can't do it. They are playing within the rules and how the CBA is gone. Now, that is by the letter of the law. When you go to the spirit of the law, the league has a problem. The league has a massive problem, right? It's just not coincidence that this guy has been on LTIR 3 straight playoffs going in and then is available for game one. Okay, you obviously know Nikita Kucherov flaunted the fact that he was healthy and could have played, right? And then you know that back in 2015, I think it was, Patrick Kane was healthy and able to play. Even though I know you can't, quote unquote, prove it, and who's to say a player's available, not available. I'm not doubting that he had a ruptured spleen, and isn't that okay? But when you know that teams basically have players that are healthy enough to play, and they are not doing it because of salary cap situations, yes, legally it's there, but yes, there is a problem, and the league needs to address it. And the only way general managers aren't going to address it, guys, because, and I don't see the league is, because they don't see it as a problem. But at the same time, I think it's going to come down to players having to sit there and say, hey, wait a minute. You know, you're the Dallas Stars, and you won your division, and that's what you're going up against because they did it that way. And they're saying, well, you could have done it that way. Yeah, only if you have someone willing to sit on IR healthy, right? And so I don't think the old, well, everybody could play by the same thing as how you do it here. I do believe no matter what the rule is, guys, in sports, if you have someone that you know is clearly violating even the spirit of it, you have to find a way to address it. But I don't think, if you're going to be honest about it, you can't call the Vegas Golden Knights cheaters. They're playing within the rules. They've just had that scenario come up where they can do that 3 years in a row. And do I like it? No. Do I think it sucks? Yes. But until the league decides to change it, it is what it is.
Kerbs, I don't know how this blew up in my face, but twice today, the gun is blown back at me.
But Alex, no, look,
be a good
this is not.
Boy.
This is not. Yes, in terms of the fact that could Mark Stone have come off IR and played sooner?
Ruptured spleen.
Is that yes? In terms of that sense, we all know that would have been possible, right? That's why, guys, I believe the rule should simply be if you're on LTIR for the final 2 games of the regular season, you missed the first round of the playoffs. It's just simple. All you got to do, you close the loophole. You find a way to close the loophole that you know is being exploited, and it's being exploited wrongly. That, by the way, and this is the part of it, it changes the balance of the game, okay? It completely changes the balance of the game and the balance of competition when an injury situation allows you to play at a different level than the other teams do. If they're not able to totally use every ounce of Mark Stone's cap, they don't go get Tomas Hertl, and the player and Hannafin and the players that they got. You can't argue with the fact that they did. They're playing within the rules that are there. But the league there's no doubt that the league has to address it in some way, shape, or form, and I just don't think it's going to happen until the players themselves say enough's enough.
Hey, Kurz, appreciate the time as always, man. Enjoy yourself this weekend. Get yourself to Texas Roadhouse. Beautiful veggie trays ready to go for you. We'll talk with you again next week, my friend.
Yeah, no, that's not going to happen, but I still defend your right to do it.
Thank you, Kurz. And I defend Vegas' right to do what they did.
Come on.
Appreciate Chris Kerber as always. The Rewind is next. If you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
It's been a fantastic show today. I have enjoyed every single second of it. We talked a little bit earlier today with Donnie Fandango.
Oh, yeah.
Who joined us in studio from 105.7 The Point about his Bills trading out of the pick that allowed the Chiefs to take the fastest wide receiver in NFL draft history.
Not about speed. We're about talent.
Looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to two things today on the Fast Lane, Alex.
Yeah?
One, I want to hear Anthony Stelzer's reaction to the Falcons taking Michael Penix Jr. I've been waiting all day, so I can't wait for that.
Yeah, load up this break going into him.
Two, I can't wait to hear Marshy's take on the Vikings getting their new quarterback.
He must be happy. He's wearing a Viking shirt.
And three, the lineup game's coming up, and it's going to be a masterpiece.
You all are going to love it.
So I'm looking forward to all of that. I can't wait to talk to each and every one of you on Monday morning. We'll be back on Monday at 11 a.m. By the way, we got the ratings this week. I probably should mention this. You guys made us the #1 midday show in St. Louis, and we cannot thank you enough. So shout out to every single one of you that made that possible. Tell your friends they should tune into BK and Ferrario as well. They're missing out when they don't. So for Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We'll talk to you guys on Monday at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane is coming up next here on BK on 101 ESPN.
Tanner, I will kick your ass in the studio. There is not a more brazenly arrogant fan base than the Kansas City Chiefs. Specifically Brandon Kiley.